Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto betrayed by Soul Society. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Ichigo was depressed. Not only did he lose to the Espada, but also it was so quick loss. He also lost his friend, Orihime, in the process. The orange-haired Shinigami cursed his weakness. He just woken up from his injuries. He was really beginning to feel weak. Grimjow nearly killed him, and now he paid the price for being weak. A cost of a friend. He growled at the thought. He was wandering around his town, not knowing what to do. There wasn't much to do. There hadn't been any hollows around, but that could all change. Moreover, things around Karakura changed frequently. Ichigo sighed. He didn't want to go back to school. He couldn't face his friends, not with Orihime gone. Someone would ask him what happened. Yeah, she got captured by these creatures called hollows. You can't see them, but they did almost kill me. That would go over so well. Ichigo huffed sarcastically. He kicked a rock, frustrated with the events that had happened. Damn, he cursed, still rather upset with himself. Orihime, please be okay. He said to the sky, looking up. He sighed. He had been wandering around for quite some time, not bothering of coming home until late at night. His father always yelled at him for keeping his family worried, but Ichigo didn't care right now. He didn't want to be around his sisters while sulking, let alone his father. They wouldn't understand. He kicked another rock down the road, but he watched it skip across the ground. Looking down the road a bit to see something sitting in the middle of the road. What the hell? Ichigo saw the something was actually a person. Hey, get out of the middle of the road. It's not safe. Ichigo yelled. The person didn't take to his warning. He growled and mumbled to himself. He quickly ran over to the person, to see that the person small like a child. A cloak covered the person completely. Did you hear me? Ichigo asked. The person looked up to him. Ichigo found himself staring into red eyes. Where the white of the eye would be was black. Yes, I heard, a soft voice came out, but then a strange smile covered the child's face. Doesn't mean I'll listen. Ichigo saw how pale the skin of the kid was. Kurosaki knew that red and black eyes were not normal and he backed away. Not scared of me, are you? Hollow, Ichigo said, giving the child an intense glare. The child nodded, with a small laugh, and looked down the road as if expecting something to come. Ichigo wondered why this hollow wasn't as malevolent as the others were. I find it strange that no cars have come down this road. The hollow mumbled. The hollow almost sounded disappointed. Don't you find it strange? The childlike hollow asked. Ichigo felt the hollow was not completely here mentally. It seemed like he was speaking to more than one person. Karakura town is a very quiet place, not many people come through here. Ichigo explained to the small hollow. The hollow sighed and titled his head a little. What the hell is a hollow doing here in the first place? Ichigo asked the boy. He didn't really respond, he just stared down the road, expecting something to happen. You are a Shinigami? Ichigo's eyebrows raised. Are you not? The hollow smiled in a boyish fashion. I can tell by the way you smell, it smells of death. The hollow stated. Ichigo kept quiet, trying to ignore the hollow's comment. What are your motives? Ichigo inquired. The hollow let out an ear-piercing laugh. It sounded like a scream almost. Ichigo was disturbed out by this hollow. Motives? The smile turned to a grin. A nasty one? I have no motives. The boy frowned. Ichigo wondered if the boyish hollow was bipolar. He acted very strange. All hollows have some reason to be in the human world. Ichigo glared at the hollow. Nay, all hollows Well then I guess I have one. Mind telling me? Ichigo was growing impatient. That's a secret. The boy giggled. Ichigo let out an irritated sigh. I guess I'll find out sometime, most likely soon. Ichigo eyed the hollow. Actually very soon. The hollow smiled darkly. You're a creep, kid. Ichigo stated. Actually I'm a monster. The boy corrected him. You should know that as well. Ichigo was taken aback. He didn't know what the kid implied, but he didn't like it. Monsters are monsters. You of all people should know that, right? What the hell are you saying? Ichigo growled. You know. Care to explain? You're just like I once was. The hollow started, and you will end up just like I did, a monster. The boy had a toothy smile. Ichigo felt a air aura pouring out of the boy. The hollow proceeded to stand, and staggered a bit. Ichigo backed away from it. It's my time to leave now. See you later. The hollow then vanished with a blink of an eye. Ichigo looked around and couldn't find where the hollow went. What the hell is wrong with that hollow? Uryu was thankful for what Urahara had done. His father leaving him in that confined place for quite some time. Ishida was now traveling around the park late at night. He had a feeling a hollow was wandering around here for quite some time. However, why it hadn't been taken care of, Uryu had no clue. He walked around the park cautiously, knowing he was nearing the beast. Ishida pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose, readying himself for the battle ahead. He saw a large lizard-looking hollow. It looked rather hungry. It sniffed the air and moved forward, with its 6 legs, with little effort. Its eyes moved constantly, swiftly scanning the area for potential prey. Luckily, it hadn't noticed Uryu. Ishida followed the hollow, silently and efficiently. The hollow suddenly stopped, its tail stopped moving. It was ridged. Uryu was confused, but then he came into realization. The hollow's tail whipped quickly to the tree Ishida stood behind. He cursed and jumped away. The hollow wasn't as stupid as it looked. I knew you were there. The hollow growled, its tail splintered the trees in its path. Uryu drew his bow made of spiritual energy, it glowed its usual blue. He aimed at the hollow, who roared its glass-shattering cry. Ishida released the arrow, aimed for its mask. The hollow used some type of shield that destroyed the arrow when it hit. What? Ishida said. Hollow whipped his tail at Uryu again, this time succeeding in hitting the Quincy. The tail smacked the boy in the face, sending the Quincy into a tree. Uryu felt his back crack against the wood. He coughed, and landed on his knees on the grass. The hollow cackled. It neared the Quincy slowly, bulldozing the trees in its way. Uryu tried to use his arrow to kill the hollow, only to have the hollow destroy it. Kukuku, stupid Quincy, you are all too prideful. The hollow chuckled, yellow eyes peering down at Ishida. The Quincy drew another arrow back. An arrow will have little effect on me, now you will die. The hollow deflected the Quincy's last attempt to kill him. Any last words, Quincy? Before I devour you? Is this really my fate? My destiny? To be eaten? Uryu said to himself, his pride was falling very quick. How was he supposed to save Orihime? He looked at the ground angry with himself. The hollow laughed at him. I guess I was the fool in the end. He closed his eyes accepting his fate. The hollow then dove towards the Quincy with its teeth. Uryu waited a few moments, but nothing came. He opened his eyes to see the hollow a few centimeters away. It was frozen, but shaking. The hollow stepped away before collapsing to the ground. Ishida saw the hollow was cut in half. On top of the hollow stood a small figure in a cloak. The person's face hidden by the hood. What? Who? You really shouldn't give up so easily, you didn't used to. The person said. Uryu watched the figure carefully, the Neji I know wouldn't do that. The person sounded sad. Ishida wondered if he confused him with someone else. Next time don't make me have to save you. The person jumped down to Uryu. The person was no taller than 4 foot, 2 inches. Uryu scowled at the person, who sounded much like a child. My name is not Neji. Ishida stood up shakily, he grimaced when he stood, but would show no stranger weakness. He dusted his arms and legs and watched as the person lazily drew up his arm past their head to look at their bloodied hand. It was an odd behavior. If I may ask, who are you? Why did you save me? Uryu asked, the moon shining on his glasses hiding his eyes. The child proceeded to roll their head to the side, and turned slightly, only one eye gazing at Ishida. I am a monster. That is the answer to your first question. The child turned fully Ishida, now recognizing one feature. Red eyes. For your second question, I did not save you. I merely just don't like to share my space with weaklings such as this hollow. The child motioned to the hollow behind him. The boy smiled a crooked smile, though, you had some trouble with this weak one. Uryu glared. I was caught, unprepared. Ishida explained, pushing his glasses up, and, if I am correct, you must be a hollow yourself. The child's smile faded. I am assuming I am correct? The hollow just stood there and moved slowly away from the Quincy. Uryu drew out his bow. I guess I am. The hollow laughed, and with a sudden movement vanished. Ishida looked around the area nervously, and felt pressure against the back of his neck. He froze. Do you honestly think you could defeat me? The hollow asked. His nails digging into the back of the Quincy's neck. I could kill you so easily. It wouldn't even be funny. The hollow said softly. The pressure faded from Ishida's neck, and the Quincy was surprised. But that wouldn't be much fun. Now would it? The hollow walked away from Uryu. You think I am weak? Uryu asked. His voice was icier than usual. He shivered slightly of how strange this hollow was. The childlike hollow only stopped and looked at Ishida with sad eyes. Uryu wondered if the hollow was planning something. Maybe the hollow was a part of the Espada. Once upon a time, Neji, you weren't weak, but now, you falter too much. The hollow said, if we meet again, hopefully you are much stronger. Or, you will die. The hollow mumbled at the end and disappeared from sight. Ishida sighed and felt his sides twist painfully. He fell to one knee. It seems, I am weak. Uryu smiled sadly, griping his broken ribs. I guess I need to become more powerful. He tried to stand again. Succeeding, he walked towards the nearest hospital. If he didn't die, his father was going to kill him. Chad had been quite tired this evening. Work today was very hard. Yes, he had a job to pay for his living. Though it was only part-time, it was better than no job at all. It was late tonight. Looking at the moon, Chad sighed. He loved how cool the night air was. He watched as a cloud moved over the moon. If only I could relax a bit more, he mumbled quietly. He had been sensing a hollow around, but it had gone away. A Shinigami probably killed it. Or something else did. For some reason, he was feeling like he had someone watching him. The feeling went away for the last 2 hours, but he felt tense because of it. He stopped, and felt the strange presence of another person. He saw a rather small person walking out of the park. The cloak made the person very suspicious. Chad knew that had to be the person that was watching him. The aura was the same. The person looked straight at him. Have you been following me around? Chad called to the person, walking closer. He noticed how short the person was. It had to be a child. Maybe I have been, maybe not. The child said to him. Chad didn't know whether to angry or concerned on why the kid was following him. Shino, you were the one who often followed me around, but the times have changed. Chad's eyebrow raised a little. He didn't know what he was talking about. You were always a quiet one. I don't know what you are talking about. Chad said with his stoic soft voice. The child smiled a little at him. Chad felt awkward. The child just stared at him with a bitter smile. He kept quiet, not knowing what to say. I have learned to appreciate silence since the days of everyone's passing. The kid laughed a bit, but it was forced laughter. He looked at the ground. Chad wondered what the child was talking about. He felt sympathetic for the boy. I guess it was my fault what happened to you, Shino, I'm sorry. I don't know what you're talking about, sorry. Chad mumbled. The child seemed depressed, and Chad felt a little nervous. He never knew how to speak to kids. He was more of a listener himself. The child looked up and gazed into Chad's eyes. Chad was surprised to see the child had red eyes. Hollow, he whispered. You're right as usual. The hollow smiled, though it was forced. Chad didn't know what to do. What did the hollow want? You were always perceptive. I guess people never change, even when they die. The hollow moved away from Chad. Why have you been following me? Chad asked the hollow. The hollow looked up at the tall Mexican-Japanese high school student. The red eyes full of remorse and other mixed emotions. I have been scared, Shino. The hollow's eyes were showing great guilt, and then they switched to anger. But I only came here to warn you. The hollow's character completely changed. Chad glared at the sudden threat. You need to become stronger, or you'll end up dead. The hollow frowned. Are you so sure that I would end up dead? Chad asked. The bipolar hollow nodded. The hollow walked down the street away from Chad. Why are you warning me? Chad asked. Why not just kill me now? Because it wouldn't be fair, and Shino, I'm sorry about last time. The hollow whispered at the end. Chad watched as the hollow disappeared with a small poof of smoke. Chad wondered who the hollow was talking about. I feel sorry for both Shino and the hollow. Chad spoke to himself. Hitsugaya was standing on top of the school building. He had been watching the area for a while now. Hitsugaya Taiko. Toshiro turned around to see Rukia and Renji. There was a huge spike of spiritual energy a few moments. I know. Toshiro cut off Rukia. Hitsugaya frowned. He knew this energy. He stood silently for a few moments. Both Renji and Rukia most likely had never felt this type of power. I need both of you to come with me. Hi. Both Renji and Rukia answered. Because if it's what I think it is, well, we'll find out. Toshiro mumbled. Ichigo was scouting the town for any hollows. It was about 2 a.m., and he didn't bother to go home. In his Shinigami form, he was looking for any type hollow causing trouble. He felt some tremendous spiritual energy a few moments ago. He jumped across the buildings at a blinding speed. He then saw the same hollow he had met earlier in the day standing on the road next to a dead child. Ichigo's blood ran cold. Kurosaki froze as the hollow stood over the dead human. Ichigo felt guilt, regret, and anger build up inside him. He jumped down from the house's roof onto the road. Ichigo had let the hollow live, and now the consequence is a dead child. "You monster!" Ichigo yelled. The victim was cut into several pieces. "Really?" The hollow turned around. Ichigo could tell the hollow had a smirk plastered on his face. "I told you, you would eventually find out." The hollow laughed. The hollow's eyes betrayed how sinister he acted. They looked sad, but then quickly turned to rage. "It would have been smart to try to kill when we ran into each other the first time. You bastard." The orange-haired teen growled. The hollow just smirked at him. Ichigo grabbed his sword and shot after the hollow. The hollow dodged, but its cloak got caught on the sword and tore. Ichigo couldn't believe what he saw. "Surprised?" The hollow grinned. The hollow grinned, his head facing the ground but his eyes locked onto the Shinigami. His opaque was black, and blood-red iris pierced through the very soul of the death god. Ichigo didn't know how to react. The hair of the hollow was golden like the sun, but contrasted grossly with his pale skin. Ichigo looked at the strange hollow, not being able to move. The boy started to laugh, raising his head to the sky. Ichigo was disturbed by the hollow's behavior. The hollow was in the form of a child, no older than 12. The boy then suddenly stopped laughing and faced Ichigo with a demented smile. "Shinigami. Part of the New Order? You seem quite weak, your potential is very high though," he stated, and stood up from his seated position on the ground. Lazily the hollow rested his shoulders, eyes now gazing upon the ground, smile vanished. Ichigo got a better look at the hollow. Torn clothing of some type of orange and black clothing, and shackles rattle around its wrists and ankles. "Disturbed, nay?" Ichigo looked back at the hollow, seeing the gaping hole through its chest. "You wouldn't the first to think that, nor the last." Ichigo felt a tinge of bitterness in the hollow's voice. "You look like a hollow, but you're different. Your energy it reminds me of." Ichigo heard the hollow let out a bitter laugh. Ichigo was unsure of the mental state of this hollow. It almost acted like it was still human, but all hollows were monsters, right? Ichigo took out his blade. "No matter, you killed an innocent person and you will pay for your crimes," Ichigo said firmly. The hollow's smirk faded to a line. Ichigo didn't know what to expect. "You want to fight me? One like you, with barely enough power to kill the one of the lowest members of the Espada?" The hollow shook his head, and surely I wanted to die against someone with power. The hollow mocked the Shinigami. Ichigo glared at the small hollow, but not matter, a fight's a fight. Ichigo knew he had to be cautious with this one, but being him, like always, ignored the feeling. "Don't underestimate me." Ichigo growled and charged at the hollow. Nearing the hollow quickly, the creature did nothing. Ichigo at the right distance swung his sword, but the hollow wasn't there. Ichigo's eyes widened, and felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned around quick enough to receive a fist in his face. "And you, Shinigami, have grossly underestimated me. I told you before, you're too weak to kill me, Ichigo Kurosaki." The hollow didn't even budge from his position, other than having his arm extended for a weak punch. Ichigo tumbled quite a few feet away. He got to his feet growling with determination. "Stubborn, nay? Just like I was once, isn't that right, Jiraiya-sensei?" he mumbled to himself. "How the hell do you know my name?" Ichigo yelled at the spaced-out beast. The hollow looked back to Ichigo from the sky. The hollow smirked a bit and walked towards the young death god. Ichigo would stand his ground. "I'm not afraid of you." "Nay, fear? I can sense coming from you, but everyone has something they fear. You know that you can't kill me, that's what your fear is, simple as that." The hollow smiled deviously. "There is no need for you to lie now." Ichigo was ticked off, so charged to the hollow Zanpakuto ready to strike his enemy. "Oh, I forgot to mention I have known you for a very long time. I know many aspects of you." Ichigo swung his sword with precision and mirth, but the hollow dodged the Shinigami's potential attack. Ichigo kept swinging the sword. "This gets boring, real fast." The hollow used its leg to kick Ichigo square in the chest, knocking the wind out of him. Ichigo flew more than 40 feet away before tumbling across the ground, and finally to a stop. So you're a stalker? You're a freaking creep? Ichigo spat, holding his now throbbing chest, sensing ribs were broken. The golden-haired Hollow shook his head, and kept his irritating, smug smirk plastered across his face. So you know a few things that doesn't mean anything. I will defeat you. Ichigo stood up, panting. Next thing Ichigo knew, the Hollow was 10 feet away from him. You know, it's a terrible thing. What happened to your mother? The Hollow said with a smile. All I can think about was her blood. Quite a waste, nay? Ichigo's eyes widened, and he grinded his teeth together. That was the last straw for him. Jumping high into the air, he prepared one of his best moves. Getsuga Tenshou, he yelled. Ichigo then snapped out of his anger and noticed the Hollow was smiling. At last, the Hollow closed its eyes with a smile, not the usual smug smirk, but a content-serene one. He spread his arms out wide and stood there. Ichigo couldn't believe it. The Hollow was going to allow itself to be killed. He saw tears slip out from the corner of its eye. I'm sorry, I won't be able to fulfill my promise. He whispered and waited for his death. Ichigo felt sympathetic, for some odd reason torn. At the last second, he changed the direction of the attack, and quickly fell to the ground and moved away, taking the Hollow with him away from the attack. The road was destroyed as well as a few buildings. The Hollow stared blankly at the Shinigami, realizing what happened. Jish didn't know it would do that much damage. Ichigo scratched the back of his head. Ichigo sighed and turned around to look if the Hollow had sustained any injuries. All he saw was shock written on the boy's face. The Hollow twitched, and eyes showed emotions such as anger, hurt, and dread. Ichigo thought people who were rescued often would be thankful. What the heck were you doing? It almost seemed like you wanted to get killed. Ichigo finally asked the Hollow. Why? The Hollow whispered. The Shinigami didn't catch what he said. Why the hell did you save me? The Hollow grabbed the Shinigami's shirt. Ichigo became confused. First, the Hollow said there was no way to defeat him. Now it was angry with him for saving him. He noticed how short the Hollow was. He was like a child. The Hollow's head only hit his lower chest. The Hollow looked like it was about to cry. This Hollow was definitely emotionally unstable. You mean you wanted to die? Ichigo found it hard to believe. Ichigo had never met a Hollow that wanted to die, especially to die by a Shinigami's hand. You are the weirdest Hollow I have ever met. Ichigo stated bluntly. The Hollow let go of his shirt and stepped back, not making eye contact. The Death God didn't know what to think of the beast. Actually, the Hollow acted more human than most. You are a strange person, Ichigo. You are hesitant to kill, after all I said, even something that was dark about your past. You remind me a lot like I once was. The Hollow mumbled quietly. Ichigo saw the Hollow smile sadly, and he wondered to himself what exactly had this Hollow life as a human had been like. And your question about wanting to die is a yes. I wish to die, very much, but it won't happen. It is only a dream. Why do you want to die? Ichigo asked. His eyes stared into the Hollow's dark ones. The Hollow was frowning, but it turned into a fox-like grin. Ichigo still held his sword out, though not realizing it. That is for another day. It seems your friends are here to detain me now. The Hollow closed its eyes, and then Hitsugaya, Rukia, and Renji appeared out of nowhere, their swords all out and ready for battle. Ichigo was a little surprised on how the Hollow could sense them coming. I knew that there was a Hollow sneaking around here. Hitsugaya's eyes set in an intense glare, but I didn't think it would be a Vasta Lord. He saw how strange the Hollow looked. You are no ordinary Hollow, that's for sure. He said sharply. Are you okay, Ichigo? Rukia asked the high school death god. He nodded and she placed her back on the Hollow. The Hollow smiled, looking at the sky, running his hand through his hair. Ichigo saw the Hollow looked like a kid, but his eyes held the wisdom and knowledge far past his age. The Hollow sighed, distressed in a way. Do you have a name? Are you just another monster? Renji kept his death glare on the Hollow. The Hollow twitched at the word monster, before giving the redhead a dark smile, and he chuckled at him. The Shinigami's eyes narrowed at the creature. While others have preferred to call me monster, the Hollow sighed. He sounded weary, but if you wish to know, my name is Uzumaki Naruto. The three Shinigami's eyes widened. The Hollow, now known as Naruto, frowned again. You know of me? Naruto? You Uzumaki? Rukia seemed a bit frightened, Ichigo did not expect this. She was now making Ichigo nervous. Hitsugaya's eyes became even colder. Renji was even a bit nervous. Impossible. You are supposed to be dead. Renji yelled at Naruto, who only glared daggers at him. Renji pointed his Zanpakuto at Naruto, who didn't seem threatened. Hitsugaya gave a smile to Renji, and then looked back the hollow that stood before him. TCH, not all of us get to die, I would know. You Shinigami should know by now that this was not my own decision. Naruto spat, and especially you Hitsugaya. He now had a sorrowful expression. You were there, and yet you pretend to not know me. At one point I thought we were friends. Hitsugaya only glared at Naruto. What the hell is going on? Ichigo broke the tension. Naruto watched amused at the young Shinigami's confusion. Who is Naruto Uzumaki? Why is everyone so nervous? Why? Hitsugaya stopped Ichigo. Not now, I will explain this later, for now we have to deal with this monster. Naruto finished for him. Problem. Hitsugaya corrected him, and Naruto shook his head. That's not what you were going to say. I know how you think of me these days, Captain. Do not act you know me Uzumaki. I have changed in the past years. I can tell. Regrettably, you have turned for the worst. Now look at yourself. The Naruto I knew is gone. Damn right, and I'm proud of it. Pride leads the blind. You have followed a dark path Uzumaki. Don't say I didn't warn you. Just because you became a captain doesn't mean you know everything. Especially about me, Hitsugaya. Naruto growled, I have my reasons. In Naruto's right hand, a blue sphere glowed. The white-haired Shinigami took out his Zanpakuto. You are a fool, Hitsugaya said darkly, now holding his sword out against Naruto. You are looking for something that doesn't exist. Now you are digging your own grave. He yelled at the blonde. Even in the end Hitsugaya, you will fail to stop me. Naruto charged at Hitsugaya. TCH, idiot. Hitsugaya scoffed, preparing to counter his old friend's attack. Renji used his Shikai, and Rukia stood near Ichigo, trying to tend to his wounds. Renji, this is none of your business. Renji's blade extended towards Naruto. The hollow dodged the attack and then disappeared. What? Renji said, then he heard a snicker behind him. Before Renji could turn fully, the young hollow slammed the small blue sphere into his chest. The boy yelled, Rasengan, and the Shinigami sent flying into a concrete building. Renji! Rukia yelled, and ran over to her friend now embedded into the concrete wall. Hitsugaya glared at Naruto. Ichigo watched, not knowing what to do. Uzumaki, this is between you and me. Leave the others out of this. Hitsugaya yelled. Naruto chuckled, a twisted smile plastered onto his face. Hitsugaya sighed, and closed his eyes trying to hold his emotions back. This was no longer the Naruto he once knew. You truly are a monster. He whispered. Nay? What was that, Toshiro? You say I'm a monster? Wasn't that what every said I was? Naruto growled, clenching his teeth showing his fangs. No matter, I will end this here and now. You are a lucky bastard, you have an end. Naruto took off to the ice Shinigami. Another blue sphere growing into his hand, it suddenly turned red. Ichigo had enough of standing in the sidelines, and ran up to Hitsugaya. Damn it, I'm not going to watch anymore. Ichigo's mask began to appear on his face. Idiot, he's too powerful. You're going to get killed. Hitsugaya said, but Ichigo ignored the warning. Stupid. He mumbled and went after Ichigo. Naruto noticed that Ichigo was foolish enough to try to stop him. Naruto looked to the crimson sphere in his palm. This would kill Ichigo, but Naruto couldn't allow that. He couldn't stop the attack either, so he kept running towards Ichigo. When Ichigo was less than 5 feet away, Naruto slammed the red energy into the ground, and proceeded to kick Ichigo with one swift movement. Ichigo felt all the air in his lungs leave, and quickly hit a wall more than 100 feet away. When the sphere hit the road, the asphalt crumbled and a small explosion happened. Dirt, rocks, and chunks of asphalt flew into the air, impairing everyone's view. Ichigo coughed and took heavy breaths, trying to get oxygen into his lungs. There was now a small crater where Naruto was. He grabbed his arms and grimaced in pain. His arm was a little torn up. Now Ichigo, we're even. Naruto muttered, and then suddenly he was incarcerated by ice. Toshiro. Naruto said, seeing the Shinigami step forward. He had wings made of ice. Activated your Bankai, did you? Naruto said glumly, closing his eyes. Now what are you planning to do with me, Nay? You are under arrest Naruto Uzumaki for attacking an officer of the Soul Society. Toshiro glared, when we get back to the Soul Society, it will be utter hell. Ichigo limped over to the ice Shinigami. It took him a while but he got there. You pushed me away from the blast? Ichigo stated. Naruto merely smirked. I returned the favor, kid. Naruto replied. Ichigo didn't like to be referred as a kid. It was strange coming from one that looked younger than himself. Toshiro, my question is, why are you arresting a hollow? Aren't you supposed to kill them rather than put them to jail? That is classified information, Ichigo. Toshiro answered, but it only made Ichigo pissed off. Are you going to tell me anything? Ichigo asked, his anger rising. Toshiro looked at him with a very serious look. No. What? Ichigo fumed. I got beaten up by the kid. Listen to this random crap between you two and you're not going to tell me anything that would help this make sense. Toshiro looked thoughtful for a second. Then looked at Ichigo. No. Hitsugaya, we need to give Renji medical treatment now. He has internal bleeding, Rukia said with a serious yet fearful tone. Suddenly a familiar face arrived. Rangaku stepped forward. Toshiro. I felt a surge of power. She saw Naruto and her eyes darkened, then that would be it. She said. Naruto remembered the woman, which only brought him more unwanted memories. Naruto kept his eyes closed, his hair covered his eyes, trying to hide his face. It's been quite a long time since we've seen you, huh, Naru-chan? She spoke softly. Ichigo really wished he knew what was going on. Matsumoto, I need you to help Rukia and Renji. I will deal with Naruto. Toshiro commanded her. She nodded and left after one last look at Naruto. She walked over to Rukia and Renji, and teleported away to the Soul Society. Ichigo, there's no way in hell I will walk away from here without knowing anything. I don't care if it is classified information, I want to know what the hell I walked into. Ichigo growled. Toshiro scoffed. I want you to help me transport Naruto to the Soul Society. Hitsugaya finished. Ichigo blinked surprised. I can't tell you anything until the elders give you permission. So for now you will have stick around if you want to know. Okay, Ichigo said before walking over the ice that held the hollow. How are we going to transport him? The orange-haired Shinigami asked. Now Naruto, be rational. Either you can bring yourself or I will have to use forceful measures. Hitsugaya asked the boy. Naruto didn't respond right away. Ichigo was finding hard to believe that Naruto would go without a fight. If you don't answer, we're going to have to take this into my hands, and I assure you it won't be pleasant. I will go, Naruto said quietly. I'll only be chased around if I get away, and I hate having people on my tail all the time. He looked into Hitsugaya's eyes, but I want you to answer a question first. Naruto said. What is your question? Toshiro asked hesitantly. He peered into the hollow's eyes, knowing the question was going to be something of the past. Why? Naruto, why did you betray me? I thought we were friends. It was not my decision. Hopefully you know that. Ichigo looked at Toshiro and saw something he had never thought he would ever see. Hitsugaya was sad, his eyes told Ichigo everything. Something happened in the past, and Ichigo wanted to know. Toshiro emotion faded away to show his usually stern look. Ichigo, I want you to keep an eye on him. I will lead, you watch from behind. He commanded. The ice that had incarcerated Naruto faded in the air. Don't try anything stupid, Naruto. The mission of escorting Naruto to the Soul Society was successful. Naruto hadn't said anything the way there either. Ichigo wondered why he had been so quiet. Then the orange-haired boy wondered what the society was going to do with Naruto. Hitsugaya was also very quiet through the trip, but Ichigo never talked either. Ichigo felt very out of place, not knowing anything. He felt tension arise when they made it into the Soul Society. Everyone was waiting at the gates, like waiting for a casket to arrive at a funeral. It was silent and morbid. The members of the society watched, glaring at the hollow. So the monster has returned? Ichigo heard someone say, then others began to gossip. Devil, filthy beast, murderer, demon, disgusting creature, impure being, incarnate of the devil. These were names Ichigo heard, and he frowned. At first, he thought that Naruto was just a hollow, but it was more complex than that. He had feelings, morals, memories, and even some friends. He was like a human, a child. He saw how Toshiro was very tense, and Ichigo thought he might be nervous, but then realized that he was angry. Ichigo knew they were friends, or once friends, he really couldn't tell. Naruto's head was bowed, avoiding the harsh glares that he had been given. Then unexpectedly a small rock had hit the hollow in the face. Ichigo saw the others began to pick up any rock they found, be it big or small. Naruto was being pelted but didn't bother to do anything. Ichigo was about to yell at the people but Hitsugaya beat him to it. As captain of the 10th Division, one command you to stop. Toshiro yelled, his voice full of anger, this is none of your business. He glared daggers at the people. They all began to leave the scene, trash-talking the hollow. Ichigo, you may leave now. And what if I don't want to? Kurosaki said quickly. Hitsugaya, stop walking. Trust me, it's better off if you leave, he said sharply. Ichigo took a deep breath and nodded, and Hitsugaya and Naruto walked away, leaving the young orange-haired Shinigami alone. Ichigo wondered how Renji and Rukia were. He walked around the society for a while wondering what was going to happen to Naruto. He felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Rukia. I heard you and Hitsugaya got Naruto back here. Rukia frowned. Renji received a huge amount of damage from that attack. Internally he was bleeding to death. Not to mention the wounds he sustained on the outside. She sighed, not doubt Rukia was worried. Naruto was sure powerful, with one attack he took out Renji. Ichigo commented. Rukia glared at the ground, seemingly angry. So what's up with this Naruto Uzumaki kid? He asked his friend. She just looked at him and said, that's classified information, Ichigo. Seriously? You too? Ichigo growled. What's so incredible about him anyways? Naruto Uzumaki is not incredible, he is a horrible creature. Rukia, she muttered softly. Ichigo sighed. I can see he is not a favorite around here. Ichigo said blandly. When we walked in the gates it was like hell froze over. That's only natural, after what he did. Rukia snorted. What did he do? Sorry, but that is classified. Damn. Ichigo cursed. Did Hitsugaya tell you to wait for the answer to come? If he did, you will find out sooner or later. Rukia stated. Hopefully sooner. Don't count on it. Rukia walked away. You want to go visit Renji? I don't have anything better to do. Nay, if it isn't Yamamoto himself. Haven't seen you in a while, geezer. Naruto smirked. The old man did not take too kindly to his words. So what's my punishment this time? Death. He laughed bitterly. Locking me up in cage worked the first time, but I don't, a third will work. Naruto ran his mouth. Toshiro was trying not to smack the hollow himself. Naruto, you have done a great deal of damage on the Soul Society. Your punishment will have to be thought out properly. Execution is unfortunately a choice we don't have. For the time being you will have to be put in the underground chambers of the Soul Society, but don't think you will not receive a heavy punishment. Yamamoto kept his icy eyes on the child. TCH, you think too lowly of me, old man. Just because you got a hold of me now doesn't mean you can keep me here. Naruto tried to mock the leader of the Soul Society. You got me twice now, but can you keep me here is the question? He narrowed his eyes. Uzumaki, don't think you could get out of here easily. You may hold a great power, but you lack common sense and wisdom. Without that you are never expected to get out of here. Yamamoto retorted calmly. You Shinigamis think you are so strong, and yet you can't keep control over your own members. He chuckled darkly. Do you not remember Aizen and Jin, nay? Naruto grinned ear to ear. Yamamoto stiffened, before releasing a deep breath, trying to control his anger. Please take Naruto to Section SS of the underground jail community. Yamamoto commanded the guards. They lead Naruto out of the room, leaving Hitsugaya and Yamamoto alone. You were right, Hitsugaya. He has changed, quite a bit. I'm sorry, Yamamoto-sama. It seems I have failed to keep him in check as a prisoner. Toshiro paused, as well as a friend. He looked at the ground sadly. It's horrible that in the end we have to treat him like monster. Hitsugaya, do not give up hope. Naruto may have changed for the worse, but he hasn't completely turned. He is not our enemy yet, and despite our original plans for him, the higher-ups have not changed it. Naruto is not a weapon, why can't they see that? Toshiro balled his hands into fists. Can't they see he is not just a hollow, but shows his human emotions too? The prodigy cursed under his breath. He and I are very different, yet the same. So much expected of us both, and yet looked down upon. Hitsugaya. Yamamoto placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. The others fear Naruto. That's why they only see him as a tool, because he can't be controlled like you and me. We can hold our own power. Naruto, however, does not have that freedom, not anymore. I understand that, but they don't see what we have seen in him. He is much different than what they assume. The white-haired boy was depressed to say at least. Yamamoto walked away from him. What do you want me to do? I want you to continue to watch over Naruto. Make sure he doesn't keep falling into his behavior. Yamamoto sighed. I in the meantime will have to converse with the higher-ups. It will be a long and difficult process. The prodigy nodded. Naruto needs you as a friend. Please help him. Yes, Yamamoto-sama. Toshiro confirmed the leader's request, but I must ask for permission for a release of information. Yamamoto looked back him, nodding for Toshiro to continue speaking. Kurosaki-san had met up with Naruto in Karakura town. He wishes to be informed about Uzumaki's past. The old man placed his hand on his chin. Ichigo Kurosaki? He saved Rukia from her execution, am I correct? Hitsugaya nodded, and the old man paced slowly around the room. Permitted. Ichigo could be useful, his outward nature, and he is very committed to his friends. Naruto needs more people around him. Toshiro bowed. Arigato, Yamamoto-sama. The prodigy started to walk away. On more thing Hitsugaya. The geezer stopped him. Toshiro looked back. Don't tell Kurosaki for a couple of days. I want these things to sink in before any more excitement happens. Hi Yamamoto-sama. It had been 3 days since the Naruto event and Ichigo had to deal with the fact that Orihime was no longer with the group. The Espada took her. Orihime's friends hadn't taken this very well. He had his head slammed through a window by Tatsuki Arisawa. Urahara had already offered Ichigo a way to Hueco Mundo to save Orihime. Ichigo was going to accept, but after the recent events Ichigo wanted to know what was going on. Hitsugaya had not said anything to him yet, but maybe he wasn't going to say anything. Toshiro really didn't know Ichigo much, they never talked much. I just need to get stronger, at this rate everyone I know, I can't protect anyone. I'm weak. Kurosaki looked at his fist, he was angry with himself. He sat in the park of Karakura town. He hadn't been going to school these days. He was depressed and confused, not knowing what to do. Even the hollow, Naruto, said he was weak. What the hell am I doing? He sat back on the park's bench, now running his fingers through his hair staring at the sunset. Sitting here won't get me anywhere. He grumbled. It surely won't. Ichigo heard the familiar voice of Toshiro. If you intend to go save Orihime that is. He said walking towards him. Toshiro was in his high school uniform. I was looking for you today, but you weren't at school. Your friends seemed rather concerned about you. Hitsugaya's eyebrow raised. The Soul Society doesn't want you to go after the girl. If you do not listen, well, you catch what I mean. Ichigo turned his head away. You don't know what's going on. Ichigo spoke harshly. Toshiro didn't seem fazed by his attitude. Hitsugaya sat next to Ichigo. The Shinigami didn't respond. You may say that, but it sounds like someone I know. Toshiro calmly replied, you are beginning to act like him, which is immature and foolish. You don't know anything. Kurosaki yelled. Toshiro glared. You think I don't feel responsible for Orihime being captured? I, a captain, couldn't stop something I have trained to care of for more than 80 years. Do not treat me like a child, he said coolly. Ichigo's shoulders relaxed a little. Don't think this is your entire fault. Hitsugaya added. I'm powerless to protect my own friends. Ichigo placed his head in his hand. I need to get stronger, and need to be able to destroy my enemies. Ichigo growled. Toshiro shook his head. No, you need to think clearly. Strength is something you need to use to protect, not destroy. Hitsugaya took in a deep breath. Ichigo, you need to calm down before you lose more than your friend. Blaming yourself is something you must not do. Ichigo sat up and looked into the white-haired Shinigami's turquoise eyes. Ichigo's eyes full of an angry, hot fire. I already used my strength to protect. Look what it did. Orihime in the Espada's hands. Uryu disappeared. Chad, Rukia, Renji, and everyone else got hurt. Ichigo yelled. He was now standing. I no longer can protect. I need power to destroy those who hurt my friends. His eyes full of revenge and lust for strength. Hitsugaya with one quick movement punched Ichigo in the face. The orange-haired Shinigami fell to his back. What the hell was that for? He seethed. A friend of mine said something similar once. Hitsugaya said with venom. He was very angry. He picked up Ichigo by the collar of his shirt. He said that he wanted power. He got what he wanted, and I let him do it. His eyes full of remorse. His voice was shaking. He turned away from everyone and turned to power, he yelled. That power made him what he is. Now he is a monster. Everyone hates him, and I had to go against him. Toshiro let go of Ichigo and hid his eyes from view. All because he wanted power, and I let him do it. Hitsugaya looked into Ichigo's eyes. Ichigo was shocked. He swore he saw the captain shed a tear, so don't do it, Ichigo. Don't end up like Naruto. There was an awkward silence. Ichigo didn't know how to respond. I see. Ichigo looked down at Hitsugaya sadly. Toshiro stayed quiet. He paused, seeing the captain now collected himself. I understand. Ichigo took in a deep breath. Hitsugaya nodded. The reason I was looking for you was that I was given permission to tell you details of the hollow Naruto Uzumaki. But before I do that, you must never tell anyone of what happened today. He added sharply. Ichigo smirked and nodded. Now, I will have to take you somewhere private. This story is something no one else may hear. It is a shameful story to the Soul Society. He glanced up to the tall teenager. Understood? Yes, Ichigo said. Aizen was in a rather good mood. He had obtained the girl and left the Soul Society disabled. He smiled. However, his partner, Jin, seemed rather lonely since Grimmjow killed Luffy, saying there was no one to chat to now. Ulquiorra had been commanded to watch Inoue and protect the girl. Aizen knew not all the members of the Espada were happy about the human stain in Las Noches. He saw one of the lower subordinates walk up to him. Aizen-sama. He bowed. What is it? Aizen asked. Hopefully this is not bad news. He stated. The hollow then gave him a nervous look. He frowned. It was bad news. He hated bad news. He was having such a nice day too. You asked the lower commandment to stay in the human world to watch over it. The hollow kept his eyes from direct contact with Aizen's own eyes. I did. Now what about it? He asked coolly. Well, you see, the lower commandment, the hollow stuttered. Aizen was losing his patience. My patience is wearing thin, now just tell me. The entire commandment was killed. The hollow finished quickly. Aizen became quiet. He was having such a calm day, now he was irritated. There was something else as well. What? He glared at the hollow. The lower being began to shake. There has been a report that Naruto was responsible and, before the hollow could finish, Aizen ran his blade through the hollow. Blood splattered on his white outfit. I was having a good day as well. Aizen sighed, and Jin with his usual grin came out of the hall. Aizen-sama, you ruined your clothes. Jin chuckled a bit. Receive bad news? Aizen stayed quiet. I see. What do you wish me to do? Jin asked. Nothing for now. Aizen sighed. I have to think of how to deal with this situation. He took a piece of his clothes and wiped the blood off his sword. Actually, Jin, would you mind cleaning this mess up? Jin nodded. Aizen wiped bits of blood off his face. He looked at his clothes and frowned. I suppose I will clean myself. He left Jin with the bloody body of the deceased hollow. You shouldn't have killed him. Jin said. What? Aizen looked displeased with what Jin had said. He was going to tell you more. Jin added with his smile still in place. We'll learn what it was sooner or later. For now I want you to send some Espada to check on things. Aizen walked a little farther, before he stopped abruptly. I will make myself clear that I don't want any bloodshed. This mission must be of stealth, nothing more. Of course, Aizen-sama. Jin started to clean up the mess. Hitsugaya had taken Ichigo to the Soul Society, to a building of some sorts. He had ordered his team that he didn't want to be disturbed. Kurosaki, you can sit wherever you like. Toshiro sat at the tatami mats. Ichigo chose to sit across from the very young captain. He didn't want to miss anything Toshiro was going to say. First of all, you should know one thing. Naruto is from a different world than yours, so things are different for him. He pointed out. The next thing is I will not repeat myself. Am I clear? Yes, Ichigo stated. Hitsugaya took in a deep breath and looked at the ground. This started 100 years ago. Toshiro started, but interrupted by the curious orange-haired teen. This feud is that old? Ichigo was surprised, but this agitated Hitsugaya. Don't interrupt. Toshiro snapped. Ask questions after I am done. Okay. 100 years ago, Naruto was found on the very rims of the Soul Society. I just got out of the academy, but had yet to be assigned to a team. I had a small idea on things worked. My friend Momo had persuaded me to join, but that is another story. Flashback. Hitsugaya. All Shinigami have been commanded to go to Section A22 of the Soul Society. There seems to be a hollow problem. One of the acquaintances of Toshiro said. Hitsugaya smiled, he hadn't been able to demonstrate his skills in a while. Picking up his sword, he ran out his room. Quickly running to the scene and quite surprised to see what looked like a young boy fighting off the Shinigami. Toshiro watched the Shinigami fail to cause any damage on the boy. He knew that must be the hollow. Shiro-chan, don't just stand there. Toshiro heard Rangaku yell at him, as she fought the hollow boy. Toshiro saw that there were many replicas of the hollow fighting. He had never seen this before. The Shinigami were having a hard time. Before he knew it, one of them attacked him. What the hell is going on? Toshiro dodged himself from one of the punches thrown at him. He drew out his blade and stabbed the hollow, only to see a small puff of smoke replace the body. It seemed somewhat comical. They're clones? He watched as others were fighting the same hollow, seeing them poof away as well. He watched each of the clones carefully, and saw one that acted different from the others. This hollow dodged more precisely, and made its moves carefully. That was the real one. Found you. Toshiro ran towards it. Some of the clones tried to stop him. He sliced through them easily. He saw his best friend was battling the real hollow. Momo, he yelled, seeing her get punched across the face. He grew angry. He charged at the hollow, who noticed him a little too late. The hollow seemed scared, sad, and confused. Toshiro wished he hadn't swung his Zanpakuto because the hollow didn't even budge when he saw the blade aim for his heart. It all happened in slow motion. I didn't mean for this to happen. I'm sorry, the hollow smiled, and the Zanpakuto pierced through his heart. Toshiro felt like he just murdered someone. He felt guilt rise. He was also feeling sick. Why was there so much blood? Did hollows really bleed this much? He was visibly shaking. Hitsugaya withdrew his Zanpakuto from the body of the hollow and fell to the ground. It apologized? Toshiro didn't think hollows had emotions or feelings, let alone remorse for those it harmed. He watched the body fall limply to the ground. He felt like he just killed another human. The other Shinigami stopped their fighting, seeing how the clones disappeared. They noticed Toshiro with his blank expression. Momo walked over to her friend. Are you alright, Toshiro-kun? She asked the boy with a worried face. He looked at her and nodded stiffly. Rangaku walked over to him with a sad glance. He didn't know what to feel after that. Rangaku offered a hand and Toshiro grabbed it and stood up. There was something different about this hollow, it seemed so human. Hitsugaya stated to his friends, I feel guilty. Like I murdered someone. He looked at the hollow more closely. It was in the appearance of a child, like himself, but older. Though strangely short, about his size. Toshiro, I know it's hard to kill hollows sometimes. Rangaku said, placing a hand on his shoulder, but it's for the better of the people. She added. He looked up to her and nodded. He sighed. Maybe it was just to psyche him out or something. All hollows were monsters. Some of the captains gathered around the hollow, checking it out. I have never seen a hollow that could multiply. One of the captains said. They all mumbled and discussed what level of hollow it was. Toshiro began to walk away, not knowing what to feel about what he killed. Momo and Rangaku tried to cheer him up. What the hell? Some of the Shinigami began to yell. He turned around to see the hollow standing, the wound on his chest completely gone. His eyes widened. Bebit H. How? Hitsugaya shocked. I stabbed it through the heart. This isn't possible. He grabbed his Zanpakuto. Forgetting the guilt that he once felt. He saw one of the captains stab it through the chest again, but the hollow grabbed the captain's arms. That hurts, you know. He threw the captain aside, then took out the Zanpakuto, and Toshiro watched the wound heal almost instantly. Are you all just going to keep stabbing me? You should know that I can't die by now. All of the Shinigami were stunned. I just found that out a couple of minutes ago. He rubbed his chest, grimacing. You are under arrest, a captain growled, for assaulting a captain and illegally entering the Soul Society, she yelled. Soul Society? What the hell is that? Where am I? After I die, I wake up to find myself in some random place and then suddenly attacked. The hollow yelled, show some respect to your elders, miss. He pointed a finger up to the woman. Then his eyes widened. Wait, why am I shorter than you? He looked up to everyone. How is this possible? Am I with giants? He asked. The captain seemed rather confused. Toshiro was irritated at the hollow's stupidity, and walked up to him. Hollow, what the hell are you playing at? Toshiro asked, pointing his Zanpakuto at the hollow's neck. Now why are you playing with us? He glared at the boy. The hollow looked at the boy with sad eyes. Toshiro grew even angrier. They train children to fight these days? The hollow said. Hitsugaya ground his teeth together. The captains looked at each other rather confused. I'm sorry you are involved with fighting at such a young age. I am not a kid, damn it. I have been here for over 20 years. Toshiro pressed his weapon to the hollow's neck. Don't make me stab you again, hollow. Why do you keep calling me hollow? My name is Naruto Uzumaki Datbeo. Toshiro looked at the hollow with disbelief. And you look no more than 10 years old. Naruto smiled, showing his fangs. Same goes for you. Toshiro growled. Naruto's smile faded away. His eyes grew gigantic, and he touched his face, sensing an unfamiliar smoothness of his skin. He looked at his arms and legs, the clothes he wore, oversized. He looked at his small hands. No way, it can't be true, he whispered. Toshiro couldn't believe that the hollow didn't even know what he looked like. I am 40, shouldn't I be 40? He asked Hitsugaya. I don't know. Toshiro growled at how strange the hollow was acting. He felt a hand on his shoulder and lowered his Zanpakuto. He saw it was one of the captains. Hitsugaya, this is not your problem any longer, he said with a calm voice. Toshiro nodded. He sheathed his sword and started to walk to his friends. While walking away, he heard the captains talking to the hollow. What he heard the hollow said made him sad somehow. Wait, I am dead? That means my friends should be around here. Naruto shouted. Toshiro looked back to see his eyes lighten up. Hitsugaya's eyes lowered to the ground, before he looked back to the road ahead of him. Toshiro woke the next morning feeling even more tired than when he went to bed. With an annoyed groan he sat up in his bed, not knowing what time it was. He looked to the window, the sun hadn't risen completely yet. Vaguely it was maybe 7:30 to 8 a.m. Haven't had decent sleep since I killed Obaa-san. He sighed. With one movement he got out of bed. He had another nightmare again. He had nightmares all the time. Sometimes he would dream of his life before the Soul Society, in which he destroyed the entire town while he slept. I have learned to control my power. He shook his head, trying to empty his mind. He headed to his closet, finding his Shinigami wardrobe. He picked a clean outfit and started to dress. Once ready, he headed out of his living quarters. He was not hungry anyway, not unusual. Once he opened the door, he saw the captain ready to walk in. Is there something you need? Toshiro asked. The man laughed a bit. Actually, I was coming to get you. Yamamoto-sama wanted to talk to you about something, he said with a soft and very relaxed voice. Everyone told me you got up pretty early, guess they were right. Toshiro knew this man, but where had he seen him? You are the captain from last night. Am I correct? Toshiro looked up to the much taller man. He chuckled. You are correct. He smiled. I am Kazuki Urahara, and well, I know you. The child prodigy. Toshiro glared when he heard the word child. Toshiro Hitsugaya. The young boy nodded. I have heard of you as well, Urahara Taiko. You are the slacker and so-called pervert, Toshiro said. Urahara laughed at him. Easy, Hitsugaya. You don't have to attack me so viciously. Urahara rubbed the back of his head. Well, you should get going. Yamamoto-sama has very important job for you, Kazuki said before walking off. Toshiro felt excited. Maybe he would finally be put into team. He quickly walked to the Soul Society's central command building. Some guards escorted him to Yamamoto's meeting room. The guards opened the door to reveal the old man who was sitting on his knees waiting patiently. Hitsugaya, please sit, Yamamoto told him. He sat at the very end of the table respectfully. I have sent someone to tell you to come here for a special assignment. Toshiro sat up straight, excited to hear what he was being assigned to. Yes, Urahara Taiko told me, Yamamoto-sama, he said. The old man nodded. Well, this is of great importance and good intention. That's why I want you to do this. Toshiro nodded at the man's words. I have seen some good in you, and heard many things about you. Feeling a bit of pride, Toshiro, he smiled. That is why I need you to watch over the hollow, Naruto Uzumaki. Toshiro's smile vanished from his face. What? Hitsugaya said as calm as he could, trying not to show hints of anger, which failed miserably. Did he really just hear that? You have to guard Naruto Uzumaki, Yamamoto repeated. Toshiro felt all his excitement turn to anger, disappointment, and confusion. He let out a bitter laugh. This was an insult to his power. This man had to be joking. You are joking. I have to watch that foolish hollow? He said with a forced smile. Yamamoto raised his eyebrow. I have to watch that confused monster? His anger coming out of his words. I assure you Hitsugaya, I did not joke, as you say. Yamamoto said. Hopefully you weren't expecting something else. He added, making Toshiro want to rip his hair out. No, he lied, trying to calm himself, his eye twitching. I don't want to deal with that bumbling idiot. I wasn't expecting anything else, Yamamoto-sama. He was a horrible liar. The old man sighed. Your assignment starts today at 12 p.m. You're to report to Sector Sulfur Monosulfide A of the underground city. Yamamoto stated, you will be living in compartment A1. Remember to take all of your things as well. Your days off are Monday and Friday. Do you accept? The old man asked him. Toshiro, knowing he had to accept, he sighed agitated. Hi. His eye twitched. Yamamoto nodded and stood up. Toshiro stood as well, and bowed to the Soul Society leader. Sayonara. He walked out of the room. Guards escorted him out of the building. He walked to his old living quarters fuming to himself. When he arrived at his room, he landed on his bed. Why me? Hitsugaya carried the small amount of things he had to the underground city. News got around fast apparently. Some of the Shinigami, who were still students of the academy he went to, snickered when he walked by. The child prodigy is becoming a jail guard, one of the students whispered to his friend. They both held back their laughs. Toshiro wanted to beat the hell out of them. More than you will ever be. Toshiro said to the two students. They glared at him, they don't even have their Zanpakuto. He scoffed. He got to the building that held the elevator to the underground city. Walking in the building he saw a man, half of his face covered by bandages. The man's hair sticking out in several different directions. Brown eyes and hair, he had a big smile. His eyes held a childish luster. Oh God. He said loudly. The man didn't mind. Hey, you must be Toshiro Hitsugaya. His smile widened, he held out a hand. Nice to meet Cha, I'm Nari Suiga. Toshiro walked past the man, not very talkative Well, neither is Kamaru, in fact he ignores me a lot. Toshiro was going to hate his life in the underground city. So, can I ask why you are being sent to live down here? He followed the white-haired boy into the elevator, and pressed a couple of the buttons. The iron doors of the elevator closed and the light of the sun slowly disappeared from Hitsugaya's view. He sighed, hey, are ya going to answer my question? I have been ordered to watch over the hollow Naruto Uzumaki. He growled. Nari whistled, he seemed impressed. Toshiro was annoyed by his voice, it was like talking to a child. Sounds pretty intense. He smiled, see here, I control the elevator. I hold all the codes to each level. So, my duty is to move people throughout the underground. There are several sections of the underground, and since we are going to SS, that is the lowest sector. See, there's A, B, and SS. SS is supposed to hold the worst of the criminals. I rarely go down there. I live in the building where the elevator starts and it's pretty boring there. Are you even listening? Nari asked. Toshiro sighed. The underground city was rather small, so Hitsugaya heard. Different from the maggot's nest, by far. No one is allowed in the city unless permitted by the council. In fact, it must be an honor to go down here. I mean, no one comes to the underground city. They no longer use it because of the maggot's nest. Saying it's safer there than here. Do you ever stop talking? Toshiro asked as he glared at the childish man. He laughed at Hitsugaya. The young Shinigami wondered how Nari could have ever graduated the academy. Ya no, you remind me of Kamaru. Always so serious, and he always asked me that question. Friend of mine ya, see. He stated. Toshiro wondered how they could ever be friends. By what he heard, they contrasted greatly. Ya, no, I wasn't always working at the elevator, before I was part of a team and… Shut the hell up. Toshiro yelled. The elevator became silent. He wondered if he had made Nari upset, but then Toshiro heard Nari laugh. Yep, defiantly like Kamaru, he smiled. Toshiro rubbed his temples and wondered if he would survive in the underground city. Especially with this idiot. Y'all need to lighten up, Toshi. It's Toshiro. The boy took in a deep breath, controlling his temper. That's what I meant. He smiled. When Toshiro entered his room, he was a bit surprised how clean the room was. The room was also very big. The section he lived in, A, had no one else living in it. In fact, he was the only living on the floor SS. He found himself a bit lonely. The only one beside himself was the hollow, Naruto. He sighed, why it had to be him to watch over the child hollow. I have to follow orders, he grumbled, not like there's much else to do here. He exited his room and walked down the lengthy hall to reach the cell room. There was only 3 cells in section SS. All of them made from a very sturdy material. He heard how quiet the whole place was. He wondered if there was actually anyone imprisoned here. Until he heard a slight movement. Toshiro looked to the cell on his left. So they finally sent someone down here, and I thought I was going to all alone. The hollow's face hidden by the darkness of the cell. Ah, I remember you. You're that kid. The hollow poked his head into the light. Toshiro was about to yell at the child hollow, but his eyes widened to see the hollow's golden hair. Not only his hair, but also sea blue eyes. Toshiro only remembered hollows being bland colors. The boy smiled at him, nice to see you again. After the trail last night I only received glares and a few dirty words. Toshiro saw how pale the Naruto was, and how his eyes and hair contrasted with his skin. Are you staring at my hair? Toshiro's face turned a bit pink and Naruto laughed. I was not. He lied and turned away from the boy. Don't be so immature. It's not as if I actually wanted to come down here. I was commanded to. Toshiro retorted. Naruto scooted closer to the bars of the cell. What are you doing? Hitsugaya looked at the hollow a little uncomfortable with the sudden gesture. Well, it's not like I can kill you. Naruto said with a small smile. He leaned his head on the bars of the cell. I mean I am shackled on my wrists, ankles, and neck. He chuckled a bit. Toshiro saw them as Naruto brought up his wrists to show the Shinigami. Besides, I really don't like to kill, I've done enough of that before I died. Naruto smiled faded into a frown. What were you, a monster before too? Toshiro crossed his arms and Naruto looked at his hands. Uzumaki then looked back up to Toshiro. Hitsugaya only meant to be sarcastic. Well, I guess I was in a sense, I was. Naruto leaned back onto the bars. Toshiro felt a little remorse for what he said. It is a burden that I still carry actually. Hitsugaya was curious on what he meant. Well, since you are going to be living down here, no sense in not telling you what I am. He lifted up his shirt to reveal a hole in his chest and some strange symbol over his stomach. What is that? Toshiro asked. His curiosity got to him, but Naruto seemed confused about something else. Hitsugaya was puzzled on what Naruto was doing. Why is there a hole in my chest? Naruto seemed scared. What the hell is this? Naruto placed his hand over the hole. You idiot, it's part of being a hollow. The Shinigami yelled. What's a hollow? Naruto asked. A human spirit that died and does not wish to move on from the human world to the spirit world. Toshiro answered, or an evil spirit, too malevolent, he added. Naruto sighed. You see this symbol on my stomach? Naruto asked Toshiro. It is a seal. Hitsugaya looked at the seal. It holds a terrible curse in which my father gave me. Toshiro's eyes widened. You see, my father sealed a demon inside me when I was born, and I guess, the boy paused, that's what turned me into a hollow. Toshiro became sympathetic for Naruto. Why would your father do that to you? Toshiro was a little agitated. Surely fathers are supposed to care about their own children. Naruto smiled. My father died the day I was born, same with my mother. Naruto stated with a sad expression. But you see, he paused. I have to ask you, what is your name? You already know my name. Why should I tell you? Toshiro asked. Naruto only laughed at him. Toshiro's eye twitched. Why you laughing, idiot? Nothing I said was funny, he yelled. This hollow was very immature. He glared daggers at the hollow, but the hollow kept laughing. Toshiro felt like he was being treated like a kid. I like you, kid. You remind me of my old friend. Naruto smiled a very sunny, bright, and cheerful smile. So what do you say, why don't we be friends? Naruto asked, with his smile. Toshiro was taken back. He was insulting the hollow and yet he wanted to be friends. Naruto was holding a hand out, but the chain prevented him to move his hand past the bar. An odd light was shining down on the hollow. Half his face was in the shadow while the other was showing his friendly eyes and smile. Toshiro couldn't understand Naruto. He was shocked by the sudden gesture. When others had just shunned him with his cold words, Naruto just smiled at him. Hitsugaya just glared at the hollow. Why would I want to be friends with an idiot hollow? Toshiro sneered, and Naruto still smiled at him. He growled, why didn't the hollow just turn him away as the others did? You are foolish, immature, and delusional hollow I have ever met. What's even worse is you think you could be friends with me. He yelled. He saw Naruto's smile disappear and the boy sigh. Toshiro had been hoping that Naruto wouldn't turn him away. He just didn't know how to respond to the sudden gesture. Hitsugaya felt his heart twist. No one other than Momo and Rangaku ever reached out. Toshiro growled and walked out of the holding cell area. I knew that this was going to happen, he mumbled to himself. Trying to ease himself, it's just like the others. Hey, Naruto called. Toshiro stopped in his tracks. I don't care what you say. Hitsugaya heard, and his eyes widened. You're my friend. Toshiro felt an odd warmth in his chest and a smile crept across his face. He turned around and walked back to the cell. Naruto looked up at him. What? My name is Toshiro Hitsugaya. The white-haired Shinigami stated. Naruto smiled. This doesn't mean we are friends. Don't get the wrong idea. He tried to glare at the boy. His cheeks puffed out in an odd embarrassment. Naruto chuckled, and his eyes flashed a childlike playfulness. I knew you would tell me your name. Naruto said proudly. Shut up, Dobi. Wait, so you are saying that Naruto is demon? Ichigo asked, interrupting Toshiro from the story. I know you told me not to interrupt until the end, but I sensed some strange power around him, something purely evil. Hitsugaya frowned. Like I said, it was his father's fault. Naruto is not a demon. He said sharply, tensing his shoulders. I don't know how he was so forgiving, but that was Naruto. Ichigo was beginning to become sympathetic, but he wanted to know more about what happened. So, what else happened? Kurosaki leaned a little, eager to listen to Toshiro's story. Hitsugaya looked at him with an exasperated expression. It made the young white-haired Shinigami look really old. Well, I continued to guard Naruto. At first I thought of him very stupid and childish, like you. Toshiro added. Ichigo twitched, but he turned to be something else, a friend. I didn't see him as a hollow. Hitsugaya sighed. He told me stories of when he was alive. They were incredible. I was never bored the 20 years of working in Sector SS. I enjoyed every day. What, 20 years of being locked up? That sounds like it would be boring. Ichigo stated. Toshiro smirked. Not with Naruto. He is very random. He said, with a small smile on his lips. Sometimes I would come out to find him not in his cell. Turns out he was using some strange jutsu that hides him. You know, Naruto came from a village of ninjas, the Konohagakure. He dreamed of being the leader or known as Hokage. He became the Rokudame, succeeding his dream. His smile faded, though he had no road to tread on. What do you mean? Ichigo asked, not being able to interpret the metaphor. Hitsugaya sighed. Since the day he was born, the entire village hated him. Toshiro began. Flashback. I was beaten almost daily as a kid. I had no friends, and I had many nightmares. Since I was an orphan, I lived at an orphanage. No one adopted me. The caretaker made me live in the attic by myself. One day I ran away, and began living under a bridge. I traveled around the village at night looking for food. I remember all the people calling me names, beating me. I didn't know why at the time. I asked the Sandame, but he never told me. I remember my 5th birthday, I nearly died. Twice, once in the village, a second time a nurse tried to kill me at the hospital. I was saved by an Enbu named Kakashi Hitaki, who was my sensei later, but I wouldn't learn that until I turned 17. Naruto paused. As a toddler I cried myself to sleep all the time, but the day I turned 5, I stopped crying. I learned to smile. Even if I was sad, I smiled. I no longer wanted to cry. I wanted to live, be happy, and move forward. Even if it was delusional, I didn't care. I wanted to move forward. Toshiro was angry. Why didn't you do anything? Why not ask the Sandame to help? Why didn't do anything? Hitsugaya asked. He flinched when Naruto's eyes met his. Sadness, knowledge, and neglect pierced the Shinigami. Naruto wrapped his hands around the bars of the cell and rested his chin next to the bar. No one would listen to me. You think that someone would care for a child that held something that killed everything they loved, cherished? Do you think a stranger would lend a handout to a child who was hated by everyone? The Sandame had bigger problems to deal with than an orphan who was ignored by the village. Naruto took in a deep breath. Being a leader means you have priorities, and the Sandame had those. The Hokage couldn't help me anyway. The elders of the village wouldn't allow the Hokage to help me. But why? Hitsugaya growled, clenching his fists. Naruto looked in the frustrated eyes of the Shinigami. You were just a kid, he yelled, no one should do that to a child. Naruto's eyes closed, and when they opened, they were blood red. Hitsugaya felt a tremendous, evil spiritual energy surround him. Toshiro backed up. Looking into the hollow's eyes, he saw hell. Naruto closed his eyes again. Toshiro was shaking. Because in reality, I am the demon that destroyed the village. Naruto said quietly, the Kyuubi and I are living in the small body, and I depended on the demon to keep me alive, and the demon looked to me to live as well. Uzumaki turned away from the Shinigami, even my own friends feared me. Naruto slipped into the shadows of the cell. End of flashback. That day I regret the most, because I never said that he wasn't the demon. I was scared for once. His eyes were, not his own. I saw many people's deaths in those eyes, but I was so scared. Toshiro closed his eyes trying to rid of tears threatening. One of the first mistakes of many. Ichigo couldn't believe what he was hearing. Hitsugaya was sharing his feelings with him, and Toshiro was giving him more than a story. He was sharing part of his past, soul, and making himself vulnerable. The orange-haired Shinigami felt a little awkward. Toshiro was trusting him. I feel that is enough of the story for today, Ichigo. He stood up. I will share more this tomorrow. Okay. Ichigo got to his feet and felt a little dizzy. Hitsugaya walked with Ichigo out of the building. Kurosaki didn't know what to feel other than tired and depressed. He said his goodbye to Hitsugaya only to find he wanted to find out more about what happened. He knew that Toshiro wouldn't tell him any more, so he thought of the one person who would tell him more. Naruto Uzumaki, the Hollow himself. Aizen sat rather bored at his chair. A couple of hours ago he sent some the Espada to check things. They had not come back, and he was not a very patient person right now. He knew most of the Shinigami were very weak. Besides the Gotei 13, but they were under his concern. The Soul Society was weak for now, and wouldn't be able to bother him. Now what are you doing, Naruto? He asked himself. The Hollow was beginning to get on his nerves the more he thought about it. Uzumaki was once a very helpful pawn. Aizen knew that Naruto had abilities beyond his own comprehension, and as an enemy, things would turn out very bad in the end. Before the Espada was fully formed, Naruto was part of it. Uzumaki was number one, and for a reason. Aizen rarely had sent to take care of anything. Aizen-sama, you seem rather bored. Or do I sense apprehensiveness and fear? Jin walked into dangerous territory. He felt the chill of Aizen's Zanpakuto against his neck. However, it didn't faze Jin at all. He just grinned, as usual. Cuckoo, I was merely joking. Aizen seethed his weapon, but you do seem rather concerned. Jin tilted his head a bit. Aizen sighed. He knew Jin was rather playful. Jin had always loved to get on his nerves. Since Luffy died, well, Aizen got more visits from Jin. Maybe it was a bad idea to make Grimmjow number 6 again. Naruto appeared sporadically, and I don't want him to interfere with what I am doing, so concerned maybe, but fear, out of the question. Aizen explained. Jin chuckled. Have you heard anything about the Espada that I sent out? Actually, they found a Shinigami and brought him in for questioning. Your non-violent words were not fully exploited. Jin explained. Do you wish to see this Shinigami? Jin didn't have to ask. Aizen was already going down to the holding cells. Cuckoo, someone is very concerned. He said to himself. Jin followed Aizen's example and headed down to the holding cells as well. When Jin made it to the cell, he saw a rather weak Shinigami chained to the wall suffering from some rather harsh injuries. You Shinigami, will tell me what you know about a hollow named Uzumaki Naruto. Aizen said with a stone face. The Shinigami glared at him, and didn't say anything. I should tell you I am not very patient now, so I'll ask you again. What do you know about the hollow, Uzumaki Naruto? Ichigo had never been into the underground. Ichigo remembered that Nari was working the elevator and wondered why he wasn't there, but Toshiro would probably explain later. He was just curious what Naruto would say, or if he would even talk to him at all. As soon as Ichigo reached the cell of Naruto, he saw the hollow sitting the farthest from the light. Another thing he saw was the cell that original held Naruto was completely destroyed. So instead, Naruto was placed into the cell across from the destroyed cell. Well, if it isn't Ichigo? Naruto said. Kurosaki could tell that the hollow was smirking. What brings you here, Nay? Did the prodigy tell you to come here? Or this for some questions? I see you are very curious. I wanted to know a little more about you. Ichigo stated. Naruto's body twitched. Toshiro told me a few things and I wanted to hear things from you. Ichigo squatted to the ground trying to see the hollow eye to eye. Naruto moved out of the shadows, his black and red eyes stared into his soul. Naruto placed his pale face in between the bars. He had a forced smile. What makes you think I would tell you anything? Naruto inquired. Surely you don't think I'll tell you anything, after all you got me into this mess. He pointed out. Ichigo glared at the hollow. Naruto was challenging him. You know, I wouldn't want to ruin your petty thoughts of the Soul Society. Ichigo ignored him. Toshiro said you were from another world, is it true? Ichigo asked. Naruto frowned. He mentioned that your hometown didn't like you. He said that we're beaten almost daily. Naruto growled, rolling his eyes. Kurosaki saw how much he acted like a child. Mentioned that, did he? Naruto moved away from the bars and sat on the hard concrete. Toshiro never learned to stay out of people's business. He sighed, looking up, seeing the harsh gray of the cell. If you must know, then I lived in a village which hated me. A village that tried to kill me. I was beaten quite often. He stopped for a moment, his eyes now upon Ichigo. Did you come down here to remind me of dark past? Nay? The Shinigami ignored the question. You had friends, what happened to them? Ichigo asked. Naruto's eyes closed. The hollow retreated back into the shadows. Hey, don't ignore me. Ichigo shouted. The hollow didn't seem to respond in any manner. Kurosaki sighed and stood up and was about to leave the room. They died, a long time ago. Naruto said quietly. Ichigo stopped and turned his head. I had quite a few, as a human. Though, I know they all hated me, it was nice to pretend that I had people that cared for me. The chains clanked across the ground, giving Ichigo a chill. Because I was too weak, they all suffered, and died at an early age. What did they die from? Ichigo walked back to the cell. Naruto was quiet, and Kurosaki swore he heard a small sob. Isn't obvious? A war happened. Most of them died that day, some young as 16. Naruto scraped his nails against the concrete walls. If I remember, it was Ino, Choji, Kakashi, Tsunade, Shizune, Sai, Hinata, Iruka, Neji, Lee, and Kankuro that died that day. Sasuke, Sakura, Shikamaru, Gaara, Temari, Guy, Tenten, Kurenai, Shino, and Kiba were the only ones who survived. Not including the deaths of the other shinobi from the 5 nations. Naruto sighed. Ichigo felt remorse for the young hollow. It was all my fault, if only I had been stronger. He mumbled. Well, not everyone died. Ichigo said, but Naruto growled at him. It's true. You said all your friends died, and how can you possibly prevent their deaths? It's a war. Suddenly Naruto slammed against the bars of the cell, his hands crushing the bars. Naruto's eyes full of a killing intent. I could have prevented the whole war. If only I wasn't so naive. If I wasn't as stupid as a child. I could have stopped my friend from destroying himself. I could have killed the Akatsuki. I could have saved Neji's father. I could have stopped Itachi from killing everyone in his clan. At this point tears were falling off the hollow's cheeks. I was weak. I couldn't keep my promises. I pay for it, and I will pay for it entirely. Ichigo sensed an evil spiritual energy surrounded the child. Ichigo pitied the boy, who was blaming himself for everything. Kurosaki wondered if he had ever acted like this. You were a kid. How were you supposed to do anything? Ichigo asked the boy calmly. Naruto smirked darkly. It's not like it was all up to you from the very beginning. Naruto chuckled. His laugh was twisted, and sounded very strange. Oh, Ichigo. A very deep said, it was definitely not Naruto's own, you have no idea. The boy was grinning ear to ear. The day I was born, I had a sealed fate. I was the only one who would save the world. I would lose everything because that was my fate. He looked at his hand as a dark energy swirled in it. Ichigo placed his hand on the hilt of his sword ready to defend himself. And now I have power, but it is too late to do anything. The energy vanished. After a few minutes of silence, Kurosaki opened his mouth. What happened to all your friends? I know they died, but how? Ichigo asked curiously. Naruto looked up to Ichigo with dark eyes. With a sad smile, he shook his head. He reached between the bars only to have his chains stop him. He motioned for Ichigo to come closer. It is something I can't tell, I have to show. Naruto reached out. I won't hurt you, I just need you to come closer. Ichigo moved up to the bars, and Naruto lightly touched his head. I will show you my memories, but be aware my memories are very dark. There was a flash, and then Ichigo and Naruto were standing in the field. Where are we? Ichigo asked. Naruto didn't say anything, but instead a blonde-haired boy ran through the field, and girl with pink hair followed. Sai, Sai, the boy yelled. He was covered in blood and it was raining outside with occasional lightning and thunder. The girl didn't look any better than Naruto. Suddenly a body significantly different than the others came into view. Sai, the boy yelled and with a final leap landed next to the pale teen. He was coughing out some blood. Come on, I brought Sakura, you'll be okay. He tried to reassure the teen. Naruto, hand him over to me. Naruto gave Sakura the battered body of Sai. He suffers from internal bleeding and has his lungs pierced. Chances of survival are slim. She analyzed the body quickly. Naruto, Sakura? Sai said, his eyes halfway open. He coughed up some blood. What are you doing? He tried to speak, his breathing irregular, blood seeping from his wounds. Be quiet, you're going to make your wounds worse. Naruto told his friend. Sai looked at the blonde with sad eyes. Sakura, can't you hurry? Naruto, I'm trying. Sakura was using her healing jutsu on the teen. Sai just sighed. Don't worry, Sai, Sakura will save you. Naruto sounded stressed, his hands trembling while he gripped Sai's hand. I don't believe in that bullshit. Sai said. Naruto's eyes widened. I am going to die, my injuries are too severe. He hacked out more blood. Naruto shook his head. You will survive, Naruto yelled, and Sai smiled a genuine smile. I am just glad I could have such caring friends. I finally was able to smile for real, Naruto. Sai took in a deep breath, coughing a bit. My only regret is not being able to see you smile one more time. No bastard, don't die on me. Naruto yelled at Sai, the teen still smiling. I'll see you again, Naruto, sayonara? Sai took his last breath and his eyes glazed over. Sai died with a smile on his face. Naruto couldn't believe it. Wake up, wake up. Sai. Naruto shook his dead friend. Sakura grabbed Naruto's arm. Naruto, it's too late, he's already gone. Sakura whispered, tears in her eyes. Naruto let go of his friend and closed his eyes. I'm sorry, I couldn't let you see me smile one more time. Sakura was fighting of the enemy with her strong punches, and a boy dressed up in green completely, helping fend off the enemy. Damn, they just keep on coming. Sakura yelled, not knowing that one of the enemies he punched was still alive. Naruto was trying to find Sakura. Once he saw her, he saw the enemy get up, getting ready to finish her off. Sakura, Naruto yelled, trying to get her attention. Trying to run to help her, he was stopped by 3 of the Zetsu clones. He tried to get through them, but they didn't let him. He quickly killed the Zetsu clones, to find he was too late. The enemy was going to run her through with a blade. Saku. His eyes widened when he saw the boy dressed in green took the blow for her. Sakura turned around to see the boy with the bowl cut stabbed through the heart. Lee? Sakura trembled a little. The boy with the bowl cut smiled. She watched as the boy kept fighting. Even with a blade through his heart. He defended her from all the Zetsu clones. He released his inner gates, taking out all of the enemies around. 8th gate open, Lee yelled, as a tremendous power released. With 5 quick movements, all the enemies around them fell to the ground dead. Lee then crumpled to the ground. Sakura ran over to him. Why the hell did you do that? Sakura yelled. Naruto ran over. Several other allies surrounded Lee as well. Why the hell did you save me? She asked, anger in her voice. Lee smiled at her. Sakura-san, you are too beautiful to die. Lee stated simply, I may just be a blind fool, but I couldn't let you die. No, not you. I never loved you and yet you still save me? Sakura held the green beast in her arms. Lee chuckled. Why? She asked him again. Sakura-san will always be the one I love, no matter what. He coughed a little. Guy, his sensei, ran over to them. He dropped to his knees next to Lee. Sensei, I want to thank you. Lee, you cannot die. Guy commanded, you can't. He felt Lee grab his arm. Sensei, please live on. Lee's hand dropped to his side, and his eyes slid closed. Sakura then moved his hair from his forehead, and tenderly kissed him there. That's for being my hero. She began to cry. Naruto found Neji dying on the ground, next to his dead cousin Hinata. He silently lay next to the girl, his eyes blank and remorseful. Neji, Naruto went to check the Hyuga girl to see if she was dead. Neji watched Naruto with his eyes. She's dead, Neji stated. Naruto confirmed what Neji said. She died, protecting me. He sounded lost. Neji was bleeding heavily from his side. I won't make it either. Neji sighed. I lost too much blood. He explained his state. I wish I could have. Naruto saw Neji lift up his hand. Hold your tongue. You couldn't have if you wanted to. Neji said sharply, I have already accepted this. But the question is, will you? He asked. Naruto didn't know what he was saying. He hated metaphors. I'm sorry. Naruto said, tears falling from his eyes. I never wanted this to happen, the blonde stated with a tired expression. Neji closed his eyes. Naruto got worried and rushed over to his side. Neji? Naruto received a light hit on his head. He became confused. Idiot, no one wanted this to happen. Neji smirked. He lowered his hand from the blonde's head. You know, Hinata loved you so very much. Naruto looked at the body of the dead Hyuga and smiled sadly. I never understood why when I was younger, but now, when I am dying I realize why. His smirk was replaced by a smile. You may be a dense, foolish, compulsive, and one of the most stupid ninja I have ever met. Naruto frowned at this, but you have the nicest, most passionate and forgiving soul I have ever met. Neji? Naruto felt guilt rising in his self. He remembered hating Neji and thinking him as the most arrogant person he met. He regretted thinking that. You taught me that fate didn't exist. You taught me I wasn't already at the end of a road, and I thank you for that. Neji laughed, and Naruto saw the Hyuga crying. I only wish I had learned what you taught me earlier in life. Maybe I wouldn't have turned to be such a damn fool myself. Neji, you are not a fool. Naruto placed his hand on the Hyuga's shoulder. Neji smiled brightly before he closed his eyes. More tears falling from Neji. I am a lucky bastard, aren't I, Hinata? Neji looked to his cousin's dead body. He laughed again. I am happy that I got to live a life fully, and even through my darkest times, I have no regrets. For I learned valuable things, from even the most foolish people. His chest started to rise and fall less and less, but in the end, I was the fool. Neji stopped breathing. What was strange was that both the Hyuga died with smiles on their faces. Sakura and Naruto had come upon Shikamaru, who was mourning the last two members of his team, Ino and Choji. Naruto watched as Sakura ran over to her best friend and rival. Naruto walked over to Shikamaru, who sat next to his best friend Choji. He smiled sadly at Choji. I guess it's time to say goodbye, Choji, Ino. Shikamaru looked at the two. Hey, don't make me hurt you, lazy ass. Ino said playfully, I'm not dead yet. She grinned. Shikamaru smiled at the girl. Ino was missing her left arm and she was slowly bleeding to death. Yeah, Shikamaru, I'm not dead yet either. Choji repeated to his friend. Sakura sat next to Ino and wrapped her hand in Ino's. Ino squeezed Sakura's hand as tightly as she could. Ino, Sakura felt tears forming in her eyes. Ino glared at the pink-haired Kunoichi. Save me the tears. Ino laughed a bit. I know you are stronger than that. She tried to comfort her oldest friend. Wouldn't want it to ruin your pretty face. She smiled weakly. Sakura gave Ino a big hug, but Ino didn't have the strength to return it. You will always be my best friend. Sakura sobbed holding her friend. Ino chuckled softly. I guess in the end you got Sasuke, huh? She said. But Sakura didn't let go. You next time I won't go so easy on you. Sakura placed Ino back on the ground. Next time Sakura gave the blonde girl a sad smile. Come on Sakura. Ino yelled as loud as she could. Let me see your dazzling smile one more time. Sakura smiled, tears coming down her face. Ino then closed her eyes. That's more like it. Ino then looked to Choji. I'll see you later. She winked and blew a small kiss to Choji. He smiled, and then Ino looked to the sky. I'll see you, she passed on. Sakura sobbed loudly. So in the end Ino loved you. Shikamaru said to Choji with a smile. That's just like her, hiding her feelings until the end. Shikamaru felt the sting of tears. Come on Shikamaru, not you too. Choji laughed a bit. We don't need Sakura and you crying. Shikamaru laughed a little as well. Choji's wounds consisted of many deep gashes, too many, his body beyond repair. I guess not. Shikamaru rubbed away the tears from his face. Ino and I will be seeing Asuma-sensei. Shikamaru looked at his friend and nodded. That you will do, Shikamaru confirmed. Now you have to find yourself a nice girl, can't let a fat ass beat you. I will. Shikamaru knew that Choji was going to pass on soon. Just tell one thing to Asuma-sensei. Tell him I know who the king is, and I will protect the king. Shikamaru said. Okay. I will tell Asuma-sensei. Sayonara my friend. Choji's head rolled to the side and Shikamaru let a few tears fall. Sakura was still grieving for her friend. In a medical tent, Naruto sat next to his two sensei, Iruka and Kakashi. Both in critical condition. Kakashi had been impaled through the chest. Iruka was found missing a leg, now bleeding to death. Naruto had just found out. Kakashi-sensei. Iruka-sensei, I didn't ever want to see this happen. Kakashi and Iruka turned to look at their student. Well, hopefully not, Kakashi said with a little humor only to grip his chest painfully, coughing. Naruto put his head in his hands. Naruto. I'm sorry. He whispered. Fresh hot tears rolled down his flushed cheeks. Kakashi and Iruka watched the boy with sad eyes. Naruto, you can't blame yourself. Iruka told him with a weak voice. Don't make me have to raise my voice, he said. But, Naruto was about to argue but Kakashi sat up causing him to cough out some blood as hold his chest, grimacing in pain. Kakashi, don't do that. Naruto tried to lay Kakashi back down on the bed, but he grabbed his arm. Minato-sensei would be proud of you Naruto, your father would be proud of you. Kakashi painfully said. Naruto's eyes widened. I'm proud of you, I am glad that I was your sensei. Kakashi. Oji-san. Naruto felt Kakashi becoming very weak. He pulled the silver-haired man into a hug. I am glad you were my sensei. He cried. Kakashi weakly hugged back and Naruto carefully placed the older man back on the bed. He turned to Iruka and hugged him as well. I am so proud of you, I really am. Iruka held the sobbing teen. Even from the beginning I was proud, and now, even at the end I still am. To-san? Naruto sobbed. He let Iruka go, and not being able to bear seeing another one of his precious people die. I'm sorry but I can't stay here. He left the room crying his heart out. He is a good kid. I guess I'll have to tell Minato, Kakashi smiled. I'll miss that troublemaker. Iruka added. Both his teachers agreed. It was 3 days after the war, and the world was at strange peace. Tsunade requested that Naruto, Shikamaru, and Sakura visit her. Naruto had no idea why, but it had to be important. As the three walked into the Hokage's office, he saw Gaara standing in the office with Temari. Kankuro was not with them. Gaara, is your... Naruto saw Temari give him a glare, but Naruto understood what had happened. Naruto, I'm glad you came. Tsunade said she was facing the window leaning back in the chair. Her desk was clear, which was odd for the Hokage. This is a very important matter. May I ask why the case cage is here? Sakura watched the two Sand siblings. Tsunade sighed. I thought friends of Naruto should be here. It is a very special day. Tsunade added with a rather soft voice. Naruto was concerned why she was acting so different. Shikamaru's eyes widened, before he looked at the ground with sad eyes. What's going on, Ba-chan? Naruto asked the old woman. Tsunade didn't say anything. She was very hesitant. This war has had a very large toll to this village, as well as the other villages. Tsunade became oddly quiet, and, we lost many good people. Just tell me what the hell is going on. Naruto yelled. The blonde was trying to get a response from her, but she didn't even twitch. Congratulations Naruto. You have been elected to be the next Hokage. Tsunade announced. Naruto gasped slightly, he smiled, but then vanished. Sakura then realized what was going on. She covered her mouth with her hand and turned away from the scene. Why? Naruto asked the 50-year-old, why am I becoming the next Hokage? Tsunade was silent. You're hiding something. Naruto finally caught on. Naruto? Tsunade started, I'm dying. She said. Naruto's heart stopped. Ba-chan? Naruto shook his head, not you too. He yelled. The jutsu I created is starting to have a toll on me. Can't Sakura or Shizune? Shizune is dead. You can't. Naruto grabbed the woman's arm and turned her around. He was shocked to see she was very old looking, and instead of her usual soft skin, very wrinkly and unfamiliar oldness. Ba-chan. Gaara grabbed Naruto's arm. It is my time, Tsunade said, closing her eyes. Naruto enveloped the old woman into a hug. Tsunade gave Naruto a bone-crushing hug, but Naruto didn't mind. Sakura also joined in and hugged the woman. Gaara stepped back. Temari watched with downcast expression. Shikamaru decided to comfort Temari, and laid a hand on her shoulder. She looked at him with a small smile. Sakura, remember you have to keep this idiot in line when I am gone. Tsunade said. The three of them parted from the hug. I'll have my hands full dealing with Jiraiya. She closed her eyes. That you will? Naruto laughed, rubbing away the tears from his face. Now Naruto, you lead this village in greatness. Tsunade smiled. That's an order. I promise. Naruto closed his eyes. 5 years later, Naruto found himself sitting next to Kiba, who lay dying in the hospital. Sakura, who was now deemed the best of medical jutsus, couldn't find anything wrong with him. Kiba had never been the same after Akamaru died in the war. Naruto sat next to his once rival, who had retired from being a ninja around the time the war ended. Naruto knew that Kiba couldn't move forward from the day Akamaru died. Sakura stated he had lost the will to live. Life support was the only thing keeping Kiba alive. Hey, guess I lost all my spirit. Kiba had a sad grin. I guess I found myself missing the old days. I wish things were different, Kiba. Naruto sighed, leaning forward in the chair next to the bed Kiba was resting in. I am truly sorry, part of me wants to tell you to move on, but I know what it's like to lose something important. Naruto unconsciously grabbed the pendant with all of the names of his friends he lost. Naruto? Kiba growled, don't follow my example, if you do I will kick your ass. The Inuzuka warned him with a smirk, and you know I could take you, he joked lightly. His smile faded, but, I can't move on, I lost my best friend that day. I felt like I died that day. Kiba sighed, but unlike Tenten I actually am here. Naruto remembered that Tenten had lived through the war, but losing her squad traumatized her. One day her parents checked on her at the hospital. She didn't talk, move, just breathe. She was there, but she was not at the same time. Tenten now was a living doll, just sitting in the hospital. Only last year did her parents finally decide to have her killed from lethal injection. Kiba, do you really want to? Naruto began to ask. Yes, I want to die. Kiba answered. I don't want to suffer any longer, I have no reason to be here. Kiba closed his eyes. I want to see my friend again. I have been waiting for years to see him. Kiba looked at Naruto with bleary eyes. Please don't make me suffer any longer. Sakura walked into the room, eyes sullen. I understand, Naruto said, giving a sad look to Sakura. She nodded her head and walked over to the life support. I'll miss you, Kiba. Sayonara. Sakura pulled the plug and Kiba smiled. Thank you. His eyes closed, and Kiba was gone. 11 years after the war. Sasuke was walking with Naruto. Today was Naruto's birthday and there was a festival held on Naruto's behalf each year. Sasuke wanted to spend the day with his friend. For some reason Sasuke was strangely nice to Naruto today. Naruto saw that Sasuke was wearing his ring today, which he rarely did, much to Sakura's distaste. Sakura was the only one that loved Sasuke after the war. He was considered the traitor. It was ironic how Sasuke and Naruto switched places over the years. Naruto the hero, while Sasuke the hated one. It saddened Naruto that the people didn't accept him back. While Naruto had always admired Sakura, he was never the one she loved. He was happy for the two, but sad that he had no one to love for himself. His love died long ago. Naruto was trying to enjoy his birthday, but he was concerned on why the Uchiha was acting so strange. What is up with you today, Sasuke? Naruto finally asked. Sasuke glanced at him before looking away. I don't know what you're talking about. Sasuke said, giving him a smile. Naruto frowned. The Uchiha was hiding something from him. It's a nice night, isn't it? He tried to change the subject, but Naruto wasn't buying it. I wonder how Kakashi, Obito, Itachi and Ino are doing, he asked. Naruto remembers Sasuke's and Sakura's 4 children, one named after Sasuke's brother. The only girl named after Sakura's best friend. They had named the 2 middle children after Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke's cousin. Strangely enough, they all held the personalities of each person they were named after. Naruto thought after Sasuke and Sakura's first child it would be enough, but apparently not. Sasuke got along with the children so well, it was surprising. Naruto snapped out of his daze. Tell me what's wrong? Naruto asked again, but Sasuke ignored him. In fact, The Uchiha was trying to lose him in the crowds. Naruto persistently waded through them. He then reached the Uchiha and grabbed his arm. Sasuke, don't. Naruto saw his friend fall to his knees. Sasuke. He yelled. People from the crowd moved away, gasping, someone get a doctor. Naruto yelled. A couple of people ran listening to the Hokage's orders. Sasuke was coughing up lots of blood and he gripped his left shoulder. Sasuke, what's wrong? Naruto got down to Sasuke's level, placing a hand gingerly on his right shoulder. I was trying to get out of the crowd before this happened. Sasuke said, coughing. Naruto saw that the curse mark was acting strange. Damn Orochimaru, he smirked darkly. You mean, you knew this would happen and you didn't tell me? Naruto asked. Sasuke didn't respond. Why? Sakura could have helped you. Naruto yelled. Sasuke gave him a cold look. Dobi, you and Sakura have worried over me too much. I didn't want you to. Sasuke heaved over and coughed out more blood. Teme. Naruto said quietly, that's because we care about you. Friends care for each other no matter what. Naruto squeezed his friend's shoulder. You and Sakura consider me a friend after all I did to you? I tried to kill you several times. I left you. Naruto stopped him, flicking him lightly in the forehead. You tried to kill us, but never did. Naruto eyed the Uchiha with an intense stare. You left us behind, but you came back. Sasuke's eyes widened. You see, Sasuke, you may have left us for a while, but friends never let go, friends stick together. Naruto smiled, to the end. Tears leaked from the blonde's eyes, as he latched pinkies with the Uchiha. Sasuke trembled a little before tears came down his own face. Dobi, I guess in the end, you were the strongest. Blood seeped out from the Uchiha's lips. Sakura ran over to her husband. Sasuke, she yelled, looking at his state. She was crying. You knew all along. Then why didn't you tell me? She glared, tears raining from her. Her children trailed behind her. Father. Kakashi Uchiha looked at his dad with a sullen look. He was holding baby Ino in his arms. Why? The 8-year-old asked him. Ni-san. Why is Toussaint crying? Itachi, the 4-year-old, asked, gripping his older brother's, Obito, arm. Obito looked to Kakashi for any help, but Kakashi didn't say anything. Toussaint is just preparing for a long nap. Obito answered with a heavy heart. Itachi nodded and Naruto sighed. You idiot, if you only told us. Sakura sobbed. You wouldn't be able to do anything. Sasuke whispered. Obito ran and gave his father a hug. Sasuke then saw Itachi do the same. Kakashi watched from the sidelines painfully. Sakura joined in the hug. Kakashi, being the oldest and most distant from anything touchy-feely or showing emotion, started to cry. He ran to his father, Ino, in his arms, and hugged him. Sasuke felt his own tears show. Naruto stepped away from the family and watched his best friend die. I'm going to miss you, Dad. Kakashi cried out, tears gushing out. Me too, Obito said. Sleep tight, Daddy, Itachi said. Hearing this truly broke Naruto's heart. I love you, more than you know, Sasuke. Sakura said in her husband's ear, her heart broken. I will miss you all as well. Sasuke said to his family, placing a small kiss on each of his sons and daughters' forehead. He turned to Sakura and kissed her lightly on her lips with a sad smile. He turned around to Naruto. I'll see you later, right, Dobi? Sasuke asked. I promise. Sasuke sat back on his knees and looked up to the starry sky and closed his eyes. Thank you, for a second chance. He then let go of his last breath. Sleep tight, Daddy, Itachi said again. 14 years after the war. The day the war was officially proclaimed over. Naruto had almost died from an attempted assassination. The first he has ever had, and the only one he would ever have. He sat in his chair in the Hokage's office stunned. What he had just witnessed in his office was like a nightmare. Sakura standing in front of his desk, her blood splattered onto his face, and a sword through her heart. Her eyes were strangely calm. Naruto's eyes were the size of saucers. Sakura looked at Naruto with a serious face. Hokage-sama, I'm glad you're okay. She said. Naruto didn't even know what happened, bewildered. We saved you in time, she whispered before clasping on his desk, blood turning all his paper red. Her eyes wide open, and her mouth slightly ajar. He saw the assassin behind Sakura with kunai through his neck. Shikamaru was standing inside the broken glass window. He had a gaping hole through his abdomen, he was panting. Naruto, thank God. Shikamaru fell to the ground weak due to blood loss. We didn't think we could make it. Naruto, finally out of his shock, ran over to the suffering Shikamaru. Don't even try to save me. I'm done for, Shikamaru announced. I'm sorry, about Sakura. How? Was there anyone else? Naruto asked Shikamaru. Shino didn't make it, Tamari, Shikamaru grew silent. Naruto understood. Shikamaru and Tamari had been married for about 5 years now. They were expecting a child, but now, everything was gone. We knew about the assassin for several days, because Tamari told us that an assassin was coming from Suna, the same assassin that killed Gaara. Naruto's eyes fell. Why didn't you tell me? Naruto asked. We didn't know what he looked like, or who he was working for. Shikamaru told him. The pineapple head grimaced in pain. Naruto was witnessing the last of all his precious people die. I guess I'm saying goodbye to my last friend from childhood. Naruto tried in a weak attempt to smile. When you get up there, would you mind saying hi to everyone for me? Naruto asked. Tell them all that I miss them. Shikamaru nodded. That I can do, Naruto. Shikamaru smiled and leaned back, resting his head on the floor. Just one more request. Naruto nodded. Shikamaru's eyes closed. Please, for my, Kurenai's, and Asuma's sake, watch over the kid. He grinned. Naruto remembered that Kurenai died during childbirth, and that was the same week Guy died. He was killed during a mission, but Naruto knew that he let himself be killed. That I will do, see you later, Shikamaru. Naruto said, but Shikamaru was already dead. There was a poof of smoke in the room. 3 Anbu ninja ran over to him. Are you alright, Hokage-sama? A youthful voice asked. Konohamaru, Moegi, Udon, they're all dead? Naruto's eyes had no emotion, they lost their luster. Ni-chan? Konohamaru reached out to touch Naruto, but Naruto turned around swiftly and he had a smile on his face. Don't worry, I'm okay. He walked past the trio. Now I'm quite busy, I have a funeral to plan. Ichigo was shaking when he opened his eyes to the real world. He looked at his, hoping he was in the real world. His hands trembled uncontrollably. Naruto withdrew his arm and crawled back in the shadows. Those were my memories. Do not be fooled. Now if your curiosity is satisfied, leave me be to my own misery. Naruto said, chains clanking against the concrete that surrounded the poor boy. Ichigo's heart was still hammering against his chest. He was feeling haunted by the memories of Naruto. He left the hollow and desperately wanted to see the sun, feel the freshness of air. He ran to the elevator. Once he reached the outside, he let out a deep breath. He knew he wouldn't sleep much tonight. Toshiro, help me. Naruto yelled at Hitsugaya. The Shinigami surrounded him. They just started to attack me randomly. Toshiro's face was emotionless. The scared aura radiated from the blonde hollow. Hitsugaya took his Zanpakuto out and pointed it at Naruto. Naruto was taken back. He looked at the prodigy with confusion. Toshiro, he croaked. You are being placed under arrest, by the order of the Soul Society. Hitsugaya said. Naruto stared the white-haired boy with disbelief. Naruto froze in his place, his eyes wide. Toshiro face blank and eyes devoid of any feeling. Naruto began to tremble. He lowered his head, hair hiding his eyes. Why? Naruto whispered, and then snapped his head up. Why? Naruto yelled, tears falling. Hitsugaya didn't even flinch. The other Shinigami grabbed him, but Naruto began to fight back only to quickly lose. 2 Shinigami held his arms behind his back, and forced the blonde to the ground. Uzumaki looked back up to Toshiro. I thought we were friends. Naruto yelled. Shackles snapped onto Naruto's wrists and ankles. The new captain of the 10th Division watched, as his team dragged him away. Hitsugaya began to walk away when he heard Naruto yell, I hate you. Little did Naruto know a tear slipped down Toshiro's face. Hitsugaya waited patiently as the elevator was moving to Section SS of the underground city. He was empty of all emotion, and Nari sensed it. The happy-go-lucky elevator man wanted to say something, but he knew this was not the time. Toshiro felt the elevator come to a stop and Nari opened the doors. Hitsugaya was briskly walking to the cell area. He had to go through several security officers. As the newly elected captain of the 10th Division, he passed through easily. When he reached Naruto's cell, Naruto had a death grip on the bars of his cell. So if it isn't my friend coming to visit me, Naruto said sharply. Naruto, Hitsugaya was cut off by Naruto laughing darkly. Naruto shook his head. He looked up into the young captain's eyes. His blue eyes full of anger and something unknown to the Naruto Toshiro knew. Hatred. Pure raw hatred. I now know the real you. And in the end they were right about you, a dark voice said. Hitsugaya knew this was not Naruto talking anymore. You betrayed me, Sasuke. Toshiro was confused. Why did the hollow call him Sasuke? Who are you talking about? Hitsugaya asked. He had an icy tone. He knew that Sasuke was one of Naruto's friends from when he was alive, but he was not Sasuke. Who is they? They was right about you. They said you would betray me. They said that you would turn against me. They said that you never cared in the first place. The bars. Naruto was gripping the bars so tight they were being crushed by him. Toshiro felt a horrible aura surrounding his friend. Hitsugaya placed a hand on his Zanpakuto, stepping back. Naruto calmed down. Toshiro then saw a mask slowly forming over Naruto's face. The pieces of the mask kept adding on. The base of the mask was black, with white stripes going through the eyes and down the sides of the cheek. The teeth of the mask added an affect to seem like it was grinning. 3 red marks appeared on the cheek. The mask had narrow eyes. The jaw was open on the sides. A horn curved around the side of the mask, much like a ram's horn, but more angular. The tip of the horn sharp as a newly sharpened sword. The mask still trying to complete itself. Toshiro saw Naruto's eyes turn into a black sclera and red pupil combination. 3 tails made of a red energy formed. He had claws, and the hollow was no longer Naruto. I will become what everyone sees me as. A monster. Naruto roared. He broke through the cell as if it was a twig. Naruto then lunged at Toshiro. The Shinigami tried to move, but Naruto was too quick. Hitsugaya held his side and Naruto smiled, licking his hand that had the prodigy's blood. Hitsugaya knew he had to get out of there and ran down the hall. Ah, Toshiro. Running away, nay? But I want to play. The beast mocked and chased the Shinigami. The security officers tried to defend themselves, but were quickly decapitated. Toshiro drew out his Zanpakuto and turned around. Sit upon the frozen heavens. Hirenmaru. Toshiro called to the ice dragon. Naruto merely laughed, enjoying the attempt. The dragon then hit Naruto, freezing him. Toshiro knew this wasn't going to be able to hold the hollow. The ice was beginning to break. Toshiro made it to the elevator, where Nari waited. We have to go. Naruto almost broke free off the ice. Nari pressed the buttons but then stepped outside the elevator. What the hell are you doing, Nari? I told you, my job is to see that no one that's locked down here to get to the surface. Nari said in a serious tone. He drew out his Zanpakuto. Hitsugaya couldn't believe what Nari was going to do. The goofball that Nari was, he was serious now. But what about your friend? You can't do this. Toshiro yelled. Nari smiled at him sadly, and he locked the gate doors. Kamaru died a long time ago. Nari said, and this is my duty, like taking care of Naruto was yours. Mine is to defend the Soul Society. The elevator slowly moved up. Naruto roared and broke through the ice. See y'all later. Nari yelled happily before Toshiro could no longer see him. That idiot, the captain whispered. He knew that Nari would die. The captain collapsed on the elevator floor. He held back his frustrations by biting on his lip. His friend had turned into a monster, and it was his entire fault. What have I done? A few more minutes and the elevator reached the surface. He got out only to hear something coming up the elevator shaft. Toshiro heard a loud roar and Naruto ripping apart the metal elevator to get out. Found you. The hollow that was Naruto yelled. But first, I'll deal with the Soul Society. Naruto jumped into the air. Floating in the air, a black sphere grew in Naruto's hands. Once the sphere was the size of volleyball, he crushed it. The pieces of the sphere fell in random directions and very quickly. Hitsugaya used his Bankai form to fly up to Naruto. Once the pieces hit the ground, they exploded. Naruto then disappeared. Toshiro looked around. Naruto had run away. Shit, Hitsugaya said. Naruto had attacked more than 3/4 of the Soul Society in 20 minutes. Hitsugaya had found Naruto trying to kill someone. He had luckily been quick enough to stop Naruto. Naruto jumped up into the air and Toshiro followed. Toshiro was having a difficult time making sure that Naruto didn't run off again. Naruto, why did you do this? He whispered. But deep down Toshiro knew that Naruto couldn't have done this. Toshiro watched as more than half the Soul Society was now under flame. Hitsugaya sickened by the proud grin Naruto wore. Then suddenly Shinigami captains appeared before Naruto. They held grave faces. Nay? A challenge? How fun! A mixture of three voices said. Ready for a battle. He suddenly stopped. Damn you! He yelled. The captains looked confused. The mix of demon, hollow, and human gripped his head in obvious pain. Hitsugaya noticed the mask had yet to fully form. The right eye was still showing. The captains unsettled by how Naruto was acting. Toshiro saw that Naruto's right eye was still the sea blue. Maybe he could get through Naruto's head. Naruto stopped this. Toshiro was less than 5 feet away from the monster. Uzumaki looked at the prodigy. His eye bleary. Toshiro flew closer to Naruto. I know this is not you. The captains were ready to attack if needed. Please, help, it hurts? Naruto whispered. Hitsugaya didn't know what was going on. One of Naruto's eyes was blue, the other red and black. I don't want to fight. His hands shaking, you have to. Naruto stopped mid-sentence, and cried in agony. Suddenly Naruto's speech pattern changed. I will kill you all one day. Count on it. Naruto roared before vanishing. The captains looked at Toshiro for an answer. Naruto. Toshiro woke up. He was panting, sweat covered him, stupid nightmares. He growled. Sitting up in his bed, he waited until his heart rate came down. He shivered at the cold air that passed through his room. Toshiro hated his never-ending nightmares. His past mistakes always haunted him. Hitsugaya remembered when he had been on good terms with the strange hollow. He didn't have nightmares for the longest time. Until a month before he betrayed Naruto, the nightmares came back. Sighing, Toshiro stood up from his bed, walked to his closet, and started to dress, not pointing even trying to sleep. He said bitterly. Sometimes he wondered how he could function properly with not sleeping at all. He walked out of the 10th Division's barracks. The night was peaceful. Not that had never been like that before. Shiro-chan. A loud and very cheerful voice called out, good to see ya. Matsumoto ran up to her captain. I was wondering when you were going to stay up later. It's only 11 p.m. Rengoku slung her arm around the young boy's neck. He could smell the alcohol on her breath as she breathed. Toshiro sighed for the 1000th time. You should do this more often. You've been drinking, haven't you? Hitsugaya stated, it wasn't really a question. She laughed at him and nodded her head. The captain continued walking while his vice-captain chatted on about something. He was not really paying attention. Matsumoto leaned on him a bit more. He growled irritated. Rengoku knew there was something bothering him, and she bothered him to get the answers. So, you staying up this late to find some lady friend of yours? Rengoku wiggled her eyebrows suggestively. He twitched and ignored her. Matsumoto huffed, so he was going to play hard to get. Well, we could find Momo in. Toshiro glared at her. Rengoku smiled. Well, it's not like you're doing anything else. I had a nightmare, Toshiro said. Rengoku frowned. Another one. It was about Naruto and the night he left the Soul Society. Hitsugaya's voice was devoid of emotion. Matsumoto listened to her captain with sad eyes. She knew that he was very good friends with Naruto at one point. Actually, one of Hitsugaya's only friends. Back before he was even a captain. Naruto, Rengoku removed her arm from Toshiro's neck, giving him space. Was it when you had to take him back to his prison? The white-haired Shinigami nodded slightly. Matsumoto kept quiet as Toshiro was trying to explain. I always feel so guilty, and confused on what really happened that night. Hitsugaya started. Naruto wasn't himself. Toshiro looked at the ground thoughtfully. But the worst part of it, Toshiro looked at Rengoku in the eye. I couldn't do anything to help. Toshiro. Matsumoto saw how depressed her captain was. Naruto may be different now, but deep down I know he still sees you as a friend. Hitsugaya looked away from her. I believe Naruto still cares about you. I would have to disagree with you, Rengoku. Toshiro balled his hands into fists. He hates me. He has a right to. Hitsugaya angrily said. I betrayed his trust. I did this, Matsumoto. I made him turn into this monster. Toshiro Hitsugaya. Rengoku said with a stern voice, you did not turn him into monster. If I remember correctly, you were his best friend. Toshiro was about to argue, but Matsumoto pointed her finger at him. He didn't kill you. He didn't try to run away from you when you detained him. I think Naruto still sees you as a friend, but he needs you and the others to help him see that not everyone hates him. I see. Hitsugaya stayed quiet. Matsumoto placed her hands on Toshiro's shoulders and looked him straight in the eye. Naruto is like how you used to be, she said quietly. Matsumoto smiled at him. Now what you need to do is remind him of how nice everyone is. Toshiro nodded. You, Ichigo, and everyone else need to work together on this. I know he had more than just you as a friend. Seek them out, and ask for help. Toshiro felt the woman's hands move away and he closed his eyes to think. Hitsugaya walked away from his vice captain who still had a soft smile on her face. Matsumoto Fukutaichu, if I ever catch you drinking this late again, I will punish you. Toshiro said with a strict demeanor. Matsumoto sighed, wondering if she got to the kid, but, one more thing, he stopped and looked back at her. He had a smile on his face. Thank you. Rangaku smiled back. Guess I'll have to try harder to not get caught. Matsumoto yelled. Hitsugaya then sighed agitated and walked away. Aizen had not received any answers. He was angry. The Shinigami had not been so spineless after all. The once captain was in a horrible mood. It was getting even worse with each passing moment. Jin slyly told Aizen that he was worrying too much, but the Espada leader knew better. Naruto was strong and immortal. Something Aizen wanted to achieve, but could not come close to. Naruto, being the hollow Aizen knew, was bound to cause some chaos. He wanted to get rid of problem before it grew to something that was not under his power. It seems that Naruto is becoming a thorn in my side. It would sound like that. Jin said from the shadows of the meeting room. Aizen ignored the ex-captain's comment. What do you plan to do? It's not like you can kill him. It would already be done if it was that easy. Jin mused. Aizen sighed and looked at his rather pale friend. If you are here to bother me, it would be best that you leave. I might actually kill you if you are not careful. Aizen glanced at his still smirking friend. Jin merely chuckled a bit before walking towards Aizen. If I was scared of you I wouldn't have come in here at all, mind you. Jin tilted his head a little. Besides, I merely wanted to know what's going on in that head of yours. I need to know what the Shinigami are hiding. They may know where Naruto is, and if I know where he is, well, the leader of the Espada paused and looked at Jin with amused eyes. I can take care of him. Take care of him? How so? Jin asked. Aizen smirked and placed his hand on his Zanpakuto, unsheathing the weapon. If I can't kill him, I can always convince him to join us again. Aizen smiled. Naruto is too naive for his own good. I remember the first time I talked to him. The leader sighed. I told him the Soul Society would lock him up forever. I told him they would betray him. He looked at his Zanpakuto, examining it. He didn't listen, but that was to be expected. It was all part of my plan. Of course it was, Jin said with his normal smirk. Aizen glared at him, then took out a piece of cloth from his jacket and began cleaning his Zanpakuto. The poor boy actually tried to find me at one point. He asked me why I told him that. Aizen looked at the reflection of himself on the Zanpakuto. I told him that's what friends do. They tell each other the truth. Aizen inspected his Zanpakuto before cleaning the blade again. I remember the day Naruto broke out of the Soul Society and came to me. The look he had on his face. He reminded me of a lost child. Is that so? Jin watched Aizen carefully as the leader pointed the blade out. Aizen examined the blade once more before sheathing the weapon. If Naruto doesn't join us, like I hope, then I will have to resort to other measures. Aizen sighed vainly. Jin listened to the man intently. We will just have to lock him up ourselves. We can't have a unpredictable factor running around, can we? Aizen looked at Jin. No, Aizen-sama. We can't have that, can we? Jin answered appropriately. That is correct, Jin. For now all we can do is use these Shinigami for information. Aizen stood up from his chair. Once we get our information, we will send the Espada to retrieve our little friend. And from there, we will continue our original plan. Jin followed Aizen out of the meeting room. Hopefully our Shinigami friends are up to talking. Ichigo had been correct on him not being able to sleep. He had been spending the night at the Soul Society. He was glad that Byakuya allowed him to stay in one of the rooms at his headquarters. Though Ichigo had no idea why the man let him, maybe Rukia had a role in it. Ichigo had been wandering the Soul Society for hours. The visions of Naruto's friends dying replayed in his mind through the night. Ichigo closed his eyes and began to become dizzy. Damn. Ichigo hissed. He was going to try to find Hitsugaya, but his lack of sleep made things much more difficult. He turned a corner rather quickly and felt himself hit something. Ichigo, confused on what happened, found himself sitting on the ground. "I'm sorry I didn't see you there. I should have been more careful around that corner," he heard a rather kind voice say. Looking up, Ichigo saw a tall man with long white hair smiling at him. Ichigo blinked before he saw the man lending him a hand. He grabbed it and stood up, and proceeded to clutch his head painfully. "Stood up too fast?" the man asked. "No, I'm fine," Ichigo said stubbornly. "It's my fault. I shouldn't have walked around the corner so fast." The world was spinning around him, and before he knew it, the man was holding his shoulders. The man chuckled softly. "Wouldn't want you to fall over again." Ichigo nodded, and the man smiled. "I have met you before." "Ichigo Kurosaki was your name?" the man wanted to clarify. Kurosaki nodded. "Well, it's nice to see you again. If you don't remember, my name is Yukitake Jashiro," Yukitake said with a warm smile. "I remember," Ichigo said. Once Ichigo was steady, Yukitake moved his hands away from the orange-haired Shinigami. "I don't think I ever talked to you one-on-one though." "That would be correct," Jashiro said. "It's strange how people just run into each other these days." There was an awkward silence between the two before Yukitake asked Ichigo, "What are you doing in the Soul Society? I guess seeing me here isn't always the best sign, is it?" Ichigo joked. Jashiro smiled a bit. "The reason I am here is because I want to learn more about the Hollow Naruto." Yukitake's eyes widened. Ichigo wondered if everyone in the Soul Society knew about Naruto. "Naruto Uzumaki?" Yukitake sighed. He had a sad look on his face. "I remember him all right." Ichigo saw how distant the man looked. "I met him many years ago. Was a very nice kid. He always visited me at the hospital when I was very ill." Ichigo frowned. "He visited you?" Ichigo asked. Kurosaki thought that he was locked up most of his life. Jashiro nodded. "I thought he was in prison. Not the entire time at the Soul Society. He was imprisoned for 20 years, and walked freely around for 30. Yukitake explained. "During the time he was free, I met him." The captain moved some of his hair from his face. It was strange talking to a hollow at first. The looks can be deceiving. The usual smile on his face faded. "My fondest memory of him was when he spent a whole day with me. The night of the King's Festival." "What happened that night?" the substitute Shinigami asked. Ichigo felt like a kid waiting for someone to tell them a story. Jashiro chuckled a bit at Ichigo's curiosity. "I was very ill that day. I was spending my day at the hospital. Naruto was upset that I couldn't go out, so he insisted on staying with me." The sickly captain looked up to the sky and sighed. Ichigo saw the forlorn look in Yukitake's eyes when he reflected upon the memory. "He brought ramen for the two of us. He talked about his past a little and said how happy he was to have friends. When the fireworks started, Naruto and I watched them together." Jashiro sighed, recalling the memory. "I remember at one point he was calling me Iruka." "Iruka?" Ichigo repeated sadly, recollecting the time when Naruto saw his two senseis died. Yukitake looked at Ichigo with questioning eyes. Kurosaki didn't know if he should tell the man about Iruka. Iruka was someone that Naruto was very close to him. Jashiro smiled gingerly. "Is that so?" Yukitake seemed a bit perturbed. "Do you know what type of person Iruka was?" Ichigo thought about the memory that he saw. Iruka was a father figure to Naruto. Ichigo watched as Yukitake's usual exuberance dwindled. He looked rather troubled. "Are you okay?" Ichigo asked the captain. Yukitake smiled sadly and looked Kurosaki in the eye. "So, Naruto saw me as a father figure." Jashiro was feeling guilty for not being able to be what the hollow saw in him. "Some father figure I am," he said with a hint of sarcasm. "I don't really know why he would think that I am like Iruka." "Don't be so hard on yourself," Ichigo said with a little irritation. Jashiro was a very kind man. Yukitake smiled at Kurosaki. "Naruto compared you to Iruka for a reason." "I suppose." Jashiro laughed. "I must be going now. I have work to take care of." The man nodded to Ichigo before walking away. Kurosaki wondered how many others Naruto had met. "Jashiro," Ichigo called. The man turned around. "Do you know anyone else who knows Naruto?" Yukitake nodded. "My friend, Shunsui Kyoraku, knew Naruto very well," Yukitake stated. Before Jashiro knew it, Ichigo was gone. He continued walking and wondered how Naruto was doing. He would have to visit the hollow at some point. A father figure. He mumbled to himself. Ichigo had been asking around for an hour before he could actually find the captain. He sighed, why does the Soul Society have to be so big? He mumbled to himself. He saw a woman step out of the 8th Division building with a book in her arms. She seemed to be irritated. Hey, do you know where Shunsui is? He asked. The woman's eyebrow rose. Wouldn't it be Kyoraku Taiko to you? She asked, moving her glasses up her nose. She had a very strict posture. Her eyes bore into Ichigo. Yeah, whatever. Look, I need to talk with him, Ichigo said to the vice captain. She was about to scold him on not respecting her captain when Shunsui walked out with a very bright smile on his face. My Nanao-chan, don't leave me, Shunsui called, trying to hug the girl. She ended up using her book to hit him in the face. Ichigo watched with an unimpressed look on his face. Nanao growled, Ichigo has come here to see you. If you need me, I will be at the library. She stormed off, mumbling about restraining orders. Ichigo looked at Kyoraku, still smiling, and wondered how Yukitake befriended Kyoraku. Oh, hi Ichigo. What brings you here? Shunsui asked, readjusting the flowered pink kimono he wore over his shoulders. Ichigo, still unimpressed, looked at the man's strange attire. He was definitely a pervert. I was talking with Yukitake, and he told me you knew Naruto. I was wondering what you could tell me about him. Shunsui's smile dimmed a bit. Ichigo wondered if memories of Naruto had that effect on everyone. Naruto, why don't we sit down in my office for this? Kyoraku suggested, leading Ichigo into the 8th Division building. Kurosaki noticed how almost all the buildings looked the same. Plain, boring, and no color. Shunsui opened one of the sliding doors to his office. Ichigo stepped in, seeing it was like all the others in the Soul Society. Shunsui went over to his desk. Ichigo sat in one of the chairs provided in the room. Jashiro told you about Naruto? Yeah, he did. Why does everyone know him? Everyone makes this sound like he is some renowned god, Ichigo stated. Shunsui chuckled a bit before taking out a cup and bottle of sake. The perverted man poured himself a cup. I wouldn't say renowned, more of infamous, Shunsui said, taking a sip of the sake. Ichigo wondered how this laid-back man could be a captain. Naruto was a very unique hollow. He said with a hint of amusement, he often tired to get me in trouble. Get you in trouble? Ichigo's eyebrows furrowed. Why did he try to do that? Shunsui smiled widely, reminiscing the old memories. Well, you see, I was walking one day, enjoying the lovely weather, and I came upon a hole. There was a hole in the fence to the woman's bathhouse. Being a gentleman, I had to see if they were okay. Then Naruto does the most unreasonable thing and yells at me, calling me a pervert. Shunsui sighed. Honestly, I was only checking to see if they were alright. Ichigo's eye twitched. Kyoraku was a huge pervert. I don't really think Naruto was overreacting, Ichigo said with a monotone voice. Kyoraku sighed, shaking his head. Young people never understand. Shunsui took another sip of the sake. Besides getting me into trouble, he always wanted to talk to me. Shunsui then displayed a rare frown. That kid always smiled. Even when people told Naruto he was a monster. I found it strange, he never once seemed bothered by it. Well, until one day. What happened? Ichigo leaned toward Shunsui, his curiosity getting to him. Kyoraku took another sip of the sake. Hibiscaya showed up one telling me that Naruto was nowhere to be found. Naturally, I wanted to help, so I went looking for him. Shunsui placed the empty cup back on the desk. When I found him, he was crying, sitting on the ground in an alley. Shunsui filled the small cup with more sake. Crying? Yes, Naruto was crying. I found it hard to believe. He was talking to himself about something. I couldn't hear him. Kyoraku rubbed his chin, thinking he was a bit frightened. I asked him why he was crying. Naruto said he was a monster and he was going to show that to everyone. I don't know who he was. Ichigo sat back in his chair. Why does it feel like I should know what he's talking about? Ichigo muttered to himself. Naruto called me Jiraiya-sensei. Ichigo hadn't heard of that name. He tried to think of the memory of Naruto's friends' deaths. Jiraiya hadn't been brought up. To think he called me a teacher. Shunsui smiled. Yeah, that is weird. Ichigo mumbled. He couldn't put his finger on it, but he felt like he knew what Naruto was talking about. Shunsui knew Ichigo was onto something. There are others. Ichigo looked up to the captain. Others who befriended Naruto. He sipped his sake. Believe it or not, many people liked him. He looked Ichigo in eye. Sui Feng, Retsu Unohana, and Shuhei Hisagi are a few examples. Ichigo nodded. Thanks. Ichigo stood up, running out of the 8th Division building. Shunsui leaned back lazily in his chair. Looking at the empty chair in front of his desk, he closed his eyes and took in the silence of the room. Ichigo Kurosaki eh? He opened his eyes, a smile etched on his lips. You will have to save us from our mess yet again. He took another drink from his sake. Urahara was sitting very bored at his shop. He could tell that something happened around Karakura town. That's when Yoruichi told him Naruto appeared. So that's what got Ichigo's attention. The ex-captain sighed. Not every day you had to deal with a hollow that can never die. He leaned lazily on his hand, using the other to fan himself. Kazuki hoped he wouldn't have to do anything, but in the end, he always had to. Kazuki had become quite fond of helping Ichigo and his friends out. Now he had to deal with the hollow he had befriended. Boy would Shinji and Hiyori flip out when they figure out. Tessai took it rather nicely, knowing the hollow was back and probably ready to destroy everything. Trouble has a knack of finding me, he mumbled. Ichigo had gone to the Soul Society, from what Yoruichi said. The cat always knew what was going on. Knowing the Soul Society, they locked him up again. He slowly stood up from his lazy sitting position. So you are finally going to take this seriously? Yoruichi asked, leaning on the wall. Urahara glanced at her. She was very patient, but unsettled by the recent events. The Soul Society won't be the only ones trying to keep Naruto to themselves. Yoruichi folded her arms across her chest. It's not crucial, for the moment. Kazuki smiled, and Yoruichi frowned at his answer. Besides, we both know Naruto is not weak, he won't give in to either of them. Urahara fanned himself in a vain manner. How crucial does it have to be before you do anything? The ex-captain of the 2nd Division yelled at the laid-back blonde. Naruto is stubborn. I know that, but the Soul Society is going to screw things up like usual. She reasoned with Kazuki. I don't know how you can be calm about all this. Yoruichi, for now we have to wait. Breaking into the Soul Society won't help us, and neither is attacking Las Noches. He said, justifying with the purple-haired woman. She sighed, knowing Kazuki was right. For the moment we have to enjoy the peace we have. It's just I don't like waiting for something horrible to happen. Yoruichi announced to the shopkeeper. It's not right. I know what's to come. She gripped her sleeves tightly. Kazuki walked into the kitchen and started to make tea. That calm before the storm is never easy. Urahara took out a kettle, began to fill it with water. Believe me, as much as I look calm. He placed the water-filled kettle on the stove. I am as apprehensive as you are right now, but unlike you. He entered the living room again. I wish to enjoy the peaceful time. You make it sound so easy. Yoruichi mumbled. Kazuki laughed, but then again, you are always being lazy. Urahara sat at the tatami mats. He gave her a disapproving glance. I prefer for you to call me passive. I believe lazy is too harsh of a word. Kazuki smiled at the woman. She rolled her eyes. More of lethargic, unenergetic, sluggish, careless, inattentive, loafing. I get it, Urahara said. I think you are just being unfair. I am just a simple, but handsome, man trying to live a normal life. He sighed dramatically. Just not everyone, he looked at Yoruichi, appreciates me. It's hard to appreciate a lazy pervert. It's handsome, passive, pervert. Urahara corrected the woman. Hey, boss. Jinta entered the room. Ururu followed behind him. Urahara looked to the two children. There's these guys that want to see you. I told them you were busy, like you asked, but they won't leave. Jinta said. If I remember correctly, one of them said their name was Shinji. Ururu said with her small voice. Yoruichi sighed. She knew this wasn't going to go over well. Kazuki smiled. Well, there goes our peace. You can let them in. Yoruichi said to the kids. They nodded and walked down the hall. They heard the door open and then several people running in. Shinji, Rojiro, aka Rose, Mashiro, Love, Hiyori, Lisa, Hashijin, and Kensai burst into the living room. I'm guessing you heard the news? Kazuki asked the visored group leader. Shinji had an irritated look on his face. I'm guessing you did. That's right, you ass. Why the hell didn't you tell us? Hiyori growled. If it's true that Naruto's running around, then we need to take him down before the Soul Society has him. Yoruichi stopped the aggressive girl. Hiyori glared at the woman, though she ignored it. Shinji grumbled and shook his head. That's no better than having him running around Karakura town. Shinji stated. Ultimately, they are going to get themselves killed. Lisa added. Soul Society is not what it used to be for sure. Kensai snorted. The kettle in the kitchen began to go off. Well, despite that, does anyone want some tea? Urahara asked the group. Kensai grew a little agitated at his comment, but Hiyori threw a shoe at him, hitting him in the face. We want answers, you damn pervert. Hiyori yelled. I will take some tea. Hashijin said. Kazuki went to the kitchen and grabbed a couple of cups, green tea packets, and the tea kettle and placed them on a tray. He returned moments later and placed the tray on the small table. Urahara poured the cups with tea. Lisa, Hashijin, Love, Shinji, and Mashiro took a cup. Kazuki took his own and placed the small green tea packet in it. Now, Urahara, we would like some answers. Shinji said. You can ask, doesn't mean I can answer them all. Kazuki clarified. Right. Shinji nodded. How exactly did Naruto end up in the Soul Society? We know that Naruto appeared, but is there a reason? Not that I know of. Kazuki started. Naruto just came to Karakura town. I'm not sure why, but there has to be a reason. He wouldn't have walked in with all the commotion. Urahara looked to Yoruichi for some help explaining. I was checking on the town, when I saw Naruto come in contact with Ichigo. Yoruichi drew the vizard's attention. The first time Naruto ran into Ichigo, it was just talking. The second time Naruto was baiting Ichigo. So you're saying this has to do something with Ichigo? Rojiro asked. Yoruichi nodded. It would have to be. The purple-haired woman looked Urahara in the eye. Ichigo plays an important role in whatever Naruto was trying to do. Was? Mashiro tilted her head slightly to the side, placing her finger on her cheek. Toshiro Hitsugaya intervened. Urahara continued. Yoruichi said that Naruto gave in to the captain's request of going to the Soul Society quietly. Mr. Hat and Clogs took a sip of his tea. Damn Shinigami. Hiyori muttered. Naruto going without a fight? That doesn't sound like a bipolar, twisted, unstable hollow to me. Shinji's eyes narrowed. It's strange how he acts. It's all over the place. Even Ichigo didn't act that way with his own hollow. Shinji tested his tea. When I met Naruto for the first time, he was very kind. Kazuki looked into the cup he held in his hands. For some strange reason, from what Yoruichi said, Naruto's spiritual energy had grown bigger from the last time we saw him. How so? Lisa asked, intrigued by the new information. Naruto's spiritual energy has tripled. Yoruichi said. The group became silent. Tea tripled? Lisa blinked, surprised. She nearly dropped the teacup in her hand. It seems we got ourselves a problem. Kensai said, we don't need an unstable hollow that can't die be super powerful. That's a ticking time bomb, he exclaimed. We won't be the only ones who can see that. Aizen most likely knows something about Naruto now. The Soul Society won't be the only ones who want to keep the hollow underfoot. Shinji sighed, knowing Aizen, he's probably trying to get to Naruto by now. Soul Society is going to be in some deep shit soon. Hiyori shook her head, but they're not going to anything about it. That's true. Love agreed with Hiyori. It will be like Gurren Lagann, the part in which Yoko's secret base is attacked. Hiyori rolled her eyes. In the end, Aizen's going to end up with the kid. Shinji confirmed Kazuki. He won't quit until he has Naruto by his side again. Naruto is the only one who could single-handedly destroy Aizen and the Espada. Suddenly Uryu and Chad walked into the living room. There was a very awkward silence. Who could single-handedly kill Aizen and the Espada? Uryu asked. The visored group, Kazuki and Yoruichi, turned to see the two. What is going on? He glared at Urahara. So much for peace. Mr. Hat and Clogs mumbled. Chad and I were wondering where Ichigo was. Uryu spoke with an icy tone. We thought perhaps you knew. Kazuki remained silent. So you do know. Kurosaki ain't here. Hiyori answered for the ex-captain of the 12th Division. Where is he? Chad inquired. Ichigo is at the Soul Society. Dealing with a problem. Yoruichi looked Chad in the eye. A very big problem. Does it have to with the cloaked hollow both Chad and I met? Uryu walked to Yoruichi, because if it is, I want to know what's going on. Ishida, Urahara cleared his throat. Before you start firing yours arrows at someone, let us explain. Uryu looked at Kazuki with an impatient look. That person, Hollow, whatever he was saved my life and then threatened to kill me. I am curious to know who it is. Uryu crossed his arms and pushed his glasses up the bridge of his nose. The Hollow called me Shino. Chad said. Shinji looked at Urahara. Kazuki sipped more of his tea before sitting it down on the table. Shino, Kazuki sat back and brought the fan up to his face. That's not the first time Naruto has called someone another name. He looked back at Shinji. When I first met him he called me Kakashi. So the kid's name was Naruto? Uryu looked at Urahara with suspicion. Naruto called me Neji. Hey, Naruto called me Kankuro. Shinji brought up. Not as stupid as the name Tsunade. I don't even know why the hell he would call me that. Hiyori threw her hands in the air. Nothing made sense coming from that Hollow's mouth. Shinji stated. Still, why did Naruto show up in Karakura? Uryu asked. What does this have to do with Aizen and the Espada? Naruto is, unfortunately, a very large part of the Espada. He was once a member. Shinji scoffed. Naruto ran off with Aizen for a while. Former Espada. Chad mumbled. Uryu growled, not too happy that a former Espada could have killed him so quickly. You two have become part of the game that Naruto has started, and you possibly won't make it out of this one alive. Urahara drank the rest of his tea and lightly placed the empty cup on the table. Did Naruto say anything to you? Not much, other than we should train just in case we meet again. Chad remembered the chilling words the boy left him with. He said he was sorry for last time, but it was for Shino. He apologized for something that happened to Shino? Well, that gets us somewhere. Shinji said sarcastically. What if you look familiar to someone Naruto knew before he turned into a Hollow? Hashijin pointed out, it would explain why he called you different names. What do y'all mean, like reincarnation? Shinji's eyebrow raised. We all know that doesn't really happen. Not quite. Uryu said. Hashijin said look familiar, not reborn. I don't think that's possible to look familiar in a sense where someone thinks you're another person. There's billions of people, and different genes, to many possibilities of one person looking like someone else. Unless they're a twin, and don't get me started on the percentages. Lisa argued her case. So how else would he confuse people for others? Mashiro asked, leaning on Kensai's shoulder. Mashiro was drinking her very slowly, holding the cup to keep her hands warm. Is there a possibility to have a same spiritual energy as another? Love brought up the question. Maybe the Hollow can sense familiar energies from you. Yoruichi's eyes widened as she came to the sudden realization. I remember from the Soul Society reading something that mentioned that. She paced around the room. It said that in some cases certain spiritual energy can be passed down from one to another. It was an extremely rare case though. So, why did Urahara, Shinji, Hiyori, Chad and I get this certain spiritual energy? Uryu asked. I have no idea. Yoruichi answered truthfully. Hiyori growled. It's pretty much reincarnation. Hiyori said, I mean can't pass a spiritual energy to someone, that's bullshit. Soul Society hides a lot of shit, they always have secrets. Damn Shinigami. I would have to agree with Hiyori. Chad voiced his opinion. TCH, as a Shinigami captain I didn't learn half the shit they hid. I'm agreeing with Hiyori. Kensai added. I'm with Kensai. Mashiro smiled. Well, whatever you believe, Naruto had a connection with those people, not doubt. Urahara shifted his sitting position on the floor. What we need to do is discuss a way to protect him. Protect him? Uryu sounded confounded. He's a Hollow, why would need to protect him? Ishida's eyes narrowed. Because whoever has Naruto on their side wins. He can't die and his spiritual energy is more than you can fathom. Shinji glared at Uryu. If go into bitch about it, then might as well leave. Naruto can't die? How is that possible? Chad looked for someone to answer him. Everyone was silent. We aren't sure. Kazuki answered. The day he came to the Soul Society he didn't even know where he was, let alone what he was. We have to protect a Hollow who doesn't want to be affiliated with anyone from the Soul Society? Uryu watched as everyone's heads nodded. Life's not easy. Kazuki whined. Life's a bitch. Hiyori corrected her, used to be captain. She cracked her neck, it was sore from keeping it bent. With Naruto nothing is easy. Even when he wasn't a complete monster. Yoruichi sighed. You guys sound cheerful. Tessai walked through the room. Everyday life for us. Rojiro smiled briefly. Yeah, every damn day of our life. Hiyori growled. You could say life for us is eventful. Urahara laughed nervously while Hiyori gave him a death glare. He coughed, clearing his throat. Anyways, we know at some point Naruto's going to leave the Soul Society, whether it's Aizen or himself. I think we have to get Ichigo. Yoruichi suggested. Naruto was after him for some reason, and eventually Naruto needs to get a hold of Ichigo. He's in the Soul Society. Chad reminded her. We would have to bring him back. Shinji stated, shrugging. Not that hard. Yeah, it won't be that easy either. Uryu retorted. Ichigo is stubborn. If has a reason to stay at the Soul Society, he will stay there. We could kidnap him. Mashiro offered. Everyone stared at her. It's an idea, right? She smiled. You kidding me? It wouldn't work. The Soul Society would be on our tails. Shinji rolled his head back. Damn it, we need to think of something. Hiyori yelled. She looked at Urahara with fire in her eyes. Use that big head of yours for once. Well, killing me wouldn't help you at all. Kazuki warned the pigtail girl. I think we would have to use Yoruichi's plan. It's the safest way for us. Who would we send? Uryu asked. Everyone looked at Ishida and Chad. Us? You are the only two that doesn't have a death sentence. Yoruichi reminded the Quincy. That's true, but how would we get into the Soul Society? I will take you. Mr. Hat and Clogs raised his hand lazily. I know how to get into the Soul Society, but you're going to have to look for Ichigo yourself. Chad and Uryu nodded. So when is this little trip going to take place? Shinji asked. In a few days. Kazuki said. In a few days? Yoruichi couldn't believe what he said. Remember Yoruichi, to enjoy the peace while you can. This will be a war like none other. Urahara snapped closed his fan. Yoruichi sighed, and the Shinji's group started to leave the house. Uryu and Chad took their leave as well, leaving Yoruichi and Urahara alone, once again. Yoruichi sat across from Urahara with a tired look. I wonder, who will win? The Catwoman asked the used-to-be Shinigami. He stayed quiet. He fanned himself, tired from all his talking. Yoruichi stared at her knees, wary at what was going to take place in the nearby future. You know Yoruichi, I really don't know. Kazuki answered with an unsure voice. I guess that's the part of life where you must live in mystery. He gave her a small smile. That's the fun part of life, so I've heard. Yoruichi smiled and shook her head. It may be fun for humans, but Shinigami? That's a whole other story. Yoruichi crossed her arms and looked at the cold tea kettle. Urahara's smile turned into a frown. He looked at Yoruichi with a questioning glance. You're hiding something. Kazuki drawled. Yoruichi's eyes widened. Now I know you met Naruto, but how? He leaned on the table. The woman smirked. Nothing gets past you, does it? She smiled. Escorting him to the underground city the night we found him in the Soul Society. Naruto asked me all sorts of questions. I didn't really answer them. Yoruichi sighed. Looking at one of the pictures in the room, she recalled the memory. Naruto called me beautiful, and said I reminded him of Kurenai. Urahara smiled, and thought of how he first met Naruto. I remember the night we found him. He was babbling on how his friends should be around. When I told him the possibility of finding his friends was very slim, he looked at me with a weird expression. Kazuki paused, remembering the moment. It was like he saw something. Then he said, Kakashi. It's strange, how everyone can be connected through one person. Yoruichi said with a soft voice. Urahara stood up and took the tea kettle into the kitchen. Yes, very strange indeed. He dumped the water out into the sink, and popped his head back into the living room. Would you like some tea? He asked. Well, if I am to enjoy this piece. Yoruichi nodded with a grin. Tea would grate. Tatsuki wished she knew where Ichigo, Chad, Uryu, and Orihime were. They had been gone for some time. She always wondered what happened to them. They would disappear for days, and then come back with injuries and horrible excuses. She sighed, irritated that Ichigo hadn't shown up in school in 2 days. Mizuira Kojima and Keigo Asano were always asking if she had seen Ichigo any time lately, but Tatsuki always replied she didn't know. Being friends with Ichigo since they were kids, she always had concerns about him. Even Ichigo's sisters asked her if she had seen Ichigo. This made her very sad. She just hoped that everyone was okay. Please be safe, she whispered into the wind. Unfortunately, for Tatsuki, the world wouldn't follow her wishes. For a storm brewed over Karakura town. Certainly, war would break out. Karakura town would only be a victim of what was to come. Tatsuki swore she heard someone call out a strange name. Tamari.
That's all for now. If you want to see next part, then please like this video and subscribe my channel. Thank you.